2020. We have, I'll pass through one bill here for Horsley Witten, and I'll let Paul explain it.
This is part of their peer review for Blue Star Business Park. They are the peer reviewer for the site inspections, primarily dealing with the stormwater system. So this is a bill covering the work they've done to date.
So I'll pass it down and give everybody a chance to look at it, and we'll move on to the minutes. We have minutes from January 28th. I only took a quick pass of these earlier. So does anybody have any changes or corrections on these?
I have one under ZBL discussion. It says Mr. Oakley. Unless you guys want my husband to come, I think we'll change that to Miss. I know. He's welcome anytime. Just let me know. I'll have him come.
What page was that on, Julie?
It's on the third page, right under the bolded, underlined MBL discussion. It says Mr. Oakley takes the discussion.
Okay.
He could bring the kids. Then there'll be 3 Mr. Oakleys here at one time.
Thank you.
There were 2 notes that I had. I don't know if we wanted to add them. One was, we did ask them whether or not the single-family house was going to be part of the condominium. They said it would, and they also indicated a willingness to close off the driveway that leads to South Worcester Street. I don't know if we want to reference that in the minutes. The other thing is also, there's a need for a landscaping plan. They said they were going to be providing it. They hadn't. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to call it a driveway, though, because there is a driveway that goes to the house.
This is the one that goes onto, actually,
Yeah, it's-
onto South Worcester
But
Street.
what's it say on their plan? Is it right away?
Oh, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, but, yeah, whatever that was, I think they agreed that they would be willing to close that off. And then that we had deed restriction, I think the applicant indicated a willingness to deed the strip out to abutters, subject to retaining the necessary utility easements. Right now, you have considered a deed restriction on the strip. I think it's the other way around. He agreed to actually deed it out to abutters. I'm not sure how, are there different abutters on either side of him, that strip?
That strip, there's
There are.
just on the left side. if you're-
They own the right side? No, they can't.
No, there's,
No.
Well, anyway, he said he'd be willing to deed those out to the abutters as long as he could preserve the necessary easements he needs to put in utilities. As opposed to that would consider deed restrictions. Yeah, is that?
this is here, but
Yeah, it's just on one side, I think.
To the house.
no, this is what they're going to deed over.
No, but when I said he was going to, the plan shows an egress onto this right of way that the.
You know what he means, right?
That he
Yeah.
agreed to close this off. Remember we said it was too close together?
Okay.
And that's what,
All right.
so it was the driveway
I
from the,
thought-
yeah,
I thought you were referring to the other.
no, I am, this is what he agreed to, whatever necessary easements he needs to preserve for the utility.
And this.
That's
will-
quite all right.
In other words,
This
that
one-
hammerhead will stay.
This
and
is
that'll
the
go.
driveway goes up.
All right, any further changes on these?
Paul, do you have that? Do you need some, want me to write that out? Do
I'm sorry?
you have that? You want me to write that out, or? those-
If you want to give, email it to us, Warren, that would be fine. We've got the notes, but
Okay,
feel
that's
free
fine.
to.
No, that's fine.
You know, we don't necessarily have to vote on these tonight, then. If you want to make the corrections, then we can do it next meeting. If everybody's okay with that? All right. As far as the one bill, if everybody's okay with it, I guess we'll look for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
Thanks.
So we have 3 public hearings on the agenda. All 3 are requesting continuance. So we can just go one by one. SP 486, they're requesting a continuance to the 25th, so that's our next meeting. And that goes along with SP 491.
All right, can I just ask again
Yep.
why they're being continued?
Sure. Those were, remember, this is primarily about the stormwater and what happened, over around the holidays was the peer reviewer had a death in the family, and that has pushed work back. And then what happened recently was there was a mix-up over getting information to the peer reviewer on it, but now the peer reviewer has everything that he needs to continue the review.
Because I know the
Yeah.
death in the family, but that's a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So do we have a date of when the peer review is expected back?
I do not have it yet, but I'll get it.
Unless there's some compelling reason why we can't do the 25th.
Right.
I'd kind of advise him that we need everything well before the 25th.
Right.
Yeah, they need to have it back to Cumberland Farms, at least in
Right.
time to, yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Do we need, we don't need to vote to continue these, do we? Do we? Okay, so I need we'll do a motion for each one.
I move to continue special permit hearing for special permit 486 to the 25th of February.
Second.
Motion and a second to continue SP 486 to February 25th. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right.
And I move to continue special permit 491 public hearing to February 25th as well.
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to continue SP 491 to February 25th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we have SP 492, it's Lopes Drive, and they're requesting continuance to March 10th.
Yeah, and the background on that was, this is, if you'll recall, when we had the town meeting, I guess it was the special town meeting back in January, where at town meeting, we amended the bylaws to move forward with billboards, particularly along 495. This is the same applicant, Carroll Advertising. So they submitted the application, and then we did an initial review and discovered that there are a couple of things that will require the Zoning Board of Appeals to issue a variance. So the applicant decided to get on the ZBA's February meeting in late February to get those variances, and then come to the planning board once those variances have been granted. But they had already submitted, we advertised it, so we couldn't,
But we haven't opened the hearing yet.
no, we have not.
So we have to open this hearing before we can continue it.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Does time period start? Do we need to have a time period?
I think it starts when we open it, right?
Don't we have to open it within a certain period of time, too?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in either case, we can't continue something if we haven't started it. So we'd have to
Did we,
open it and then.
did we advertise for this?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, then,
okay, yeah, we do have to open it. Okay, so I guess we'll open SP 492.
Was it advertised for a particular time? 7:30 or?
No, just the date,
Okay.
just for today.
Yeah. Well, the only time on there is 7:15, so we should be good. Okay, so SP 492, we don't need to vote to open it, so it's open. And now they're requesting a continuance to March 10th.
Move to continue special permit 492, 3 Lopes Drive. Continue the public hearing to March 10th.
second.
Motion and a second to continue SP 492 Lopes Drive to March 10th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. That concludes the public hearing section of tonight's program. Now we have the discussion of the Village Center.
I guess just start on one point. There were questions that came up about the deadlines by which any, the final draft that goes to town meeting, the date by which it can no longer be amended except on the floor at town meeting. So I worked with the town manager's office, and The final posting of that warrant is May 7th, so what I've been told is May 6th, we would submit the changes because they need to mail it out on May 7th. So anything that gets amended prior to that could be made without changes. Of course, you all will be looking at this in April, potentially May 5th. Again, the goal is, if you all recommend it, then that's your recommendation is what will go to the town meeting. But we should note, obviously, that we will also be presenting to FinCom and the Select Board, and we're going to try to get it. They haven't set those dates that far out yet, so, but they obviously need to do it prior to, we want to get it prior to the May 7th posting, so.
You have FinCom and Select Board on March 2nd, then you show it again down below. What are those other two down below?
So,
Is that their comments or something, or?
this is when they hear, so the first one in March, now the only one that we have set right now is FinCom for March 2nd. The Select Board will be sometime around then, and there's been some discussion about having joint meetings. But this will be for us to present the draft to them, the initial draft. That's issued as part of the warrant. But then we do have to go back to FinCom and the Select Board, because remember too, they make recommendations at town meeting. So rather than, which has been the practice of having recommendations by those two entities on the day of town meeting, it'll be late April, early May. So that'll be their recommendation.
And before they make their recommendation, Paul, do they need to have the final, not just the draft?
Well,
I know
I
we
think it makes sense for them to meet after this board meets, so we can give them, if you make your decision on April 28th, then we can get that out to them. That's the hope. It may, if it doesn't overlap like that, I would assume by that first meeting on April 7th, we'll have it pretty darn close to final. So
I agree.
we're trying to get we're working with what we can.
Yes.
And I think, the fact that you all have gone, you've laid out your schedule early enough, hopefully others will see that and go, okay, let's wait for planning board to make their recommendations, so.
And the votes that they'll take in May and the end of April, those are the votes on the final plan or the final article. So
Right.
it's their vote to present to the town meeting, whether they recommend it or not. So, yeah, we'll have our final copy, I guess. I don't want to say final draft, but we'll have the final one to them, for their March and April meetings, right? And then
Right.
late April and early May, we're not going to make any changes to it because there's no need to. So even though we have
No.
up until May 7th, we'll have it done probably a month prior to that.
Yeah, and to clear up any confusion from the last meeting, that was, I think I maybe approached it wrong by saying final draft when I said that, but that's exactly how I think it should go. I mean, there are definitely going to be recommendations and changes along the way. The goal is to limit those.
I think this planning board public hearing on April 7th, maybe based on the feedback from that public hearing, we may want to have another meeting to make any amendments, but that should be done prior to the FinCom and the select board voting on it, so.
Right.
And we'll have the presentation to FinCom and Select Board before that April 7th meeting, so, yeah, any changes they recommend too.
Right.
Do we have to have two public hearings? I noticed two on the schedule.
Yeah, we do. So
Believe
we do.
what's the pre-town hall meeting
Sure.
information session? You have two of them?
Well, so there's been discussion by the town manager to have a workshop of the town meeting, all the warrant articles before the town meeting. But I still wanted to go in addition to that to make sure that our work, we have a chance to meet with the butters and the general public, to do that in advance of it, just to do what we can. Take advantage of some of the time we have in between now and April, get their feedback, see if there's something that we need to amend. That way we can bring it up to you in April. So we're doing a bit more outreach than, since I've been here anyway, so we want to make sure that people have had a chance to vet it. So we'll also be meeting with the property owners and businesses as well.
Actually, maybe we can take this up when we talk about the amendment, but for these types of things, what kind of notices are we going to be giving out? Maybe we can address that when we talk about.
Well, because this is a rezoning, right, so there's the language and then there's a rezoning part of it, so we will notice abutters within the zoning, within the rezoning area. So everyone there, and then 300 feet, a 300-foot radius from it. And then it also goes into the paper. We'll put it up on different social media and the town website to get it out there. I think that's another purpose for the, for us to have informational sessions.
Oh, no, I think it's good. I'm concerned about them coming. I think we need to be prepared to make changes based upon information we're getting from FinCom. from
Right.
the Public. I just want to make sure if we're inviting that, and I want to, we
Yep.
have time to make those changes. That's the only thing.
Yeah, agreed.
I think it's kind of tight between April 28th, well, it's only one day, and the FinCom meeting on April 29th. I wonder if we can, I know we have our schedule, but I wonder if we can move the two public hearings a little bit earlier, or the second one a week earlier, to give us, or something, because we really don't have any time after that second public hearing to make any changes before it goes to the FinCom. You know what I mean? I don't know what the
Yeah.
solution is with the schedule, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
28th and 29th, if we get any substantial comments during the second public hearing, we don't have any time to make any changes
Right.
before the FinCom votes on it, so. Whether we move both dates up at a meeting, or
I know we had,
the 21st or something.
There was a lot of conflict on April 21st as far as a meeting, I remember. And I think that's why we pushed it to the 28th.
Oh, yeah, you got 2 weeks. 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then there's one on the 5th, so.
And there's no reason why we can't have the first public hearing before we meet with the FinCom with the select board, right?
Oh, like move it up to our last meeting in March, Kevin?
Yes, yeah,
I have to do some calculating then.
okay.
Because the notices, I'm not saying it's not possible, but the work plan that I've worked up is, everything's based off of these April dates, so you could potentially, but the signs have to be in the ground 3 weeks before your first public hearing.
Okay.
So that's, and then we have to get the notices to the paper and to abutters 2 weeks before.
We're going
Got
to
it.
be,
Like you couldn't introduce any comments that were made at, to the FinCom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We could, but we don't want to upset them. I mean, we don't mean we're making changes to the draft when presenting it at the same. It'd be nice to have the thing complete and printed as it's going to be submitted for the article. But yeah, we can, but
Let's see, did anybody here have an issue on the 21st?
I did.
Is that,
That's April vacation.
that is vacation, that's why, okay.
I think that's
And I
what-
have I have a conflict too.
Yeah,
The whole week?
That's not on here.
Okay.
yeah.
well, it says FinCom April 29th or May 4th. You know, if we could,
Yeah, that hasn't been settled yet, so.
okay. I mean, if it was May 4th, it might be okay.
Yeah, then we
Yeah.
at least would have a couple
I
of.
mean, unless they made major changes, I mean, it's their, at that point, it's their recommendation, which we would help them make, but, if it's something, I mean, we have until May 6th to make it, so obviously, if it's a small change, we can do it, but then, one of the things I hope we can do, and I think all of us do, is make sure that we can be one voice. And that's why we have this, go to them early, then go to them again, and have that discussion, so that way what you recommend as the board is what they also agree to.
And what the FinCom will do, if they're not sure, or if they got the information too late, or we're amending it in front of them, they'll just take no action. You've seen that on certain articles.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then by the time town meeting happens, they may have had time to discuss it, and,
And we get jammed up.
between May 7th and May 18th, and then they might move it, or they may not. So
Yeah, and
But
that's a-
either way, it won't be printed on the article, on the warrant that they recommended it on the bottom.
And that's a worst case, and that's, I mean, that's
No.
if for some reason somebody finds a blaring omission or
Mm.
something that we didn't notice
It-
prior to that, so.
It
We
looks
don't
like
want
we're
that.
losing the whole month of March. There's nothing really set for March.
Well,
we have
that's where we're
regular
going to do a
business.
lot of outreach, and then you also have deadlines from when the board, the select board forwards it to the planning board for the board to take action, so.
65
So
days.
what we've seen at these public outreaches in the past is just how to prepare for town meeting. So what might come up and how we would prepare for it. Hopefully, you'll be very ready with your draft much sooner than later. And then try to make last minute changes is not the way to go about it. So
Right.
You should be happy with the changes going into these public presentations and then just using these as information to how to prepare anything that might come up at town meeting. That's what we've used them for in the past, and it's worked very well for us. So
I agree.
you should be confident before that date. I would agree
Well, and
with that.
it's my hope that as we set meetings, even with the abutters and the general public, the info session, that we'll have some members of the board come and help present it. And have help with the discussion with it.
No,
So,
I was just looking, for example, maybe putting the first planning board meeting, the last day we can in March, and just throwing it back a week as opposed to coming forward. And then you can spend some more time and just move the whole thing. It just looked like you have a whole month of March, and I agree, we should have outreach.
yeah.
Yeah, we gotta look at the schedule as well, too, because we still have Cumberland Farms, we have,
Wading
we're gonna
River.
have Wading River, Lopes Drive.
Plus, needs 3 weeks to post it before the
Yeah.
first public hearing. And it's already,
Okay.
we're right outside 3 weeks right now, right?
2 weeks or 3 weeks? 2 weeks?
3 weeks for the signs to go into the ground. And that's the subject of the next amendment, but won't help us this go around, so.
But if you can request that the FinCom meet with us on the 4th instead, that would be,
Okay, I mean, if
That would
that's
be
what the
helpful.
direction that the
Yeah.
board would like, I can at least let the town manager know.
Yeah. If we could be
Yeah,
on
because
the
even just-
second day, so to speak, the second meeting.
The turnaround for you and Nicole, just, any changes that very morning have to be done and then sent over, so that's gonna be,
That's a lot.
we've done that before.
are we talking
That was
about on the
no fun.
4th?
No, like if we,
Oh, yeah.
if we had to make the 29th, Kevin, it'd be
Yeah.
like everyone would show up in the morning of the 29th trying to scramble.
Yeah, so we make the decision on the 28th at
Yeah,
night, and then the
yeah,
next
right,
morning.
exactly.
Yeah,
But then we have to print it and everything, and,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no.
and they needed it by noon or something that day, right, when we did that, yeah.
No.
The other consideration, I mean, we're talking about the village center, but keep in mind, we also will have the marijuana bylaw, so we need to try to keep that on the same track. We've promised the Industrial Development Committee that, the commission, that when we have our info session, that we'll do it the same night. They have a great idea of having a panel discussion with theirs, so we have to keep in mind that as we're setting these dates, that there's also that one, and,
And then anything that gets petitioned too.
right, so we'll know tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's the deadline, so we haven't received anything else for zoning other than the village, our village commercial, our village center core, the marijuana bylaw, and then I have a placeholder for that article we'll talk about later to see if we want to do that. So that's a placeholder. But other than that, we haven't received anything, and I haven't heard from anyone about it, about a potential change.
Okay.
By the way, Paul, the whole schedule seems to be earlier this year. The town meeting seems to be a couple weeks earlier, the town election seems to be 2 or 3 weeks earlier. So maybe next week it won't be I mean, next year, as much of a crunch in the schedule.
Well, but
That's
we're gonna-
early for town meeting, May 18th.
But we're going to just do a better job of just keeping, planning the schedule out is vital.
Yeah, no, this is great, Paul, to
And-
see it like kind of on
Yeah,
paper. I think it's
absolutely.
really helpful for all of us
So-
to see that.
And scheduling our meetings out a little far, seemed like, pain in the neck to do, but it,
Yeah, so soon enough, you'll be planning out through the end of the year.
Yeah.
Because
I think
fall
it's
town
enough
meeting,
you wanted a year, we settled at 6 months.
but you can see the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Because if
Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
have this, it'd be really very challenging without that. Those were critical points for me in creating this whole schedule was having your dates up and through the town meeting. Having those was a key. Unfortunately, finding out when the final draft is due, it fell into the schedule. So, I think we're fine. There are going to be things that we can't control, obviously, but we're going to control what we can.
Well, meeting in front of the FinCom, other departments, as well as school department, they don't have the requirements for, 2 public hearings and timelines and
Yeah.
everything. So
Right.
the FinCom should accommodate us in
Right.
that merit,
Yeah.
So-
have us meet on the second date, the
Right.
4th instead.
And there could be some others. As you mentioned, Kevin, I've been trying to get on to Historic District Commission. I'm trying to get that set up. I'm doing what I can. And I also would like to get on speak in front of the Water and Sewer Commission. Not really to get their feedback on this, but to let them know that we're doing it, because that corresponds with the sewer improvements that they're making. And then also use that as a springboard toward, let's start collaborating more on where you put water and sewer and where where we want to see growth, especially with the master plan underway. So, but I would like to bring that in front of them.
And to add to your list, if you have time to talk to town council and Wheaton College over those lots that we talked about,
Yeah.
that belong to Wheaton, how that's going to work as far as adherence to the new zone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any change is gonna increase the property value, so I'm sure they're gonna be all about that, increasing.
All right, so you want to just go straight through it?
Julie, do you want to, or should I?
Well, has anything changed since our last?
I can go over and at least let you know some of the changes that were made based on the
Yeah.
meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago.
Let's do that.
Starting on page 2, I moved the requirement for a special permit, there's not a need for a special permit in the VCC zoning. I moved that and combined it with letter I,
I'm sorry,
page 2, I'm sorry, of the language.
Back, yeah.
and you did what?
I just moved, we had it in another section that just states that a special permit for a common driveway is not required.
I looked at that. If you look at 15.3C4, it says a special permit is required if you have 2 or more common driveways. Is that what it said? And I don't know if we have to make an exception for that, in noting it. And see, it says more than one driveway. More than one driveway.
Driveway, not common driveway, but a driveway.
Okay.
So remember, that discussion we had about that was, we were very concerned about limiting the number of driveways in this area, and one of the discussions we had was if you want more than one, you need to file for a special permit.
Okay.
Not a common, but just
Okay.
typical, regular driveway. So again, on page 2, right at the top, letter I,
Right.
we just consolidated that, moved it from another section. Weren't many changes. I guess we should start the definition of,
Can we kind of just go section by section, because I went over this afternoon.
Sure.
I didn't have the new version, but the old version, and there were a number of questions I had that, so,
okay. Do you
right
want-
off the top, the very first thing, the width of a common drive, I on the second page.
Yeah,
You have the width of a common driveway, and you put some other stuff on it, but to range from 12 feet to 20 feet, subject to the site plan approval by the town. Shouldn't that be the planning board, so there's no question as to who is going to issue the site plan approval?
let's see. One of the discussions that we had was, for projects that met the threshold for triggering a site plan review by the board, but then also it's possible small projects that could come in this area. If they fell under that threshold, it would be an administrative approval.
Yeah, but
But then,
the
planning
board-
board or its designee.
Yeah, the term
Okay.
term town may be confusing. I wouldn't know where to start. We need the second.
And I don't want people struggling over, is it the ZBA that grants it?
Okay.
Or-
So by the planning board or designee?
yeah.
Okay.
And the next thing I have is housing, the definition, housing top of the shop, and if there's anyone else that's got anything in between that, I'll wait.
You sent out something from Holton Witten about frontage area, frontage building?
Well, I'm sorry, is the question on housing top of the shop?
No, before that.
No,
At his next
The whole
question.
frontage area, the frontage area, I don't see that term used anywhere else in this whole bylaw change.
there's one area where it's, that I know that it's listed. And
Yeah, something about setbacks, right?
There's something about, should be no less than 10 or more than 40 feet, but that's not frontage area, it's,
so that's frontage.
Right.
That's front yard setback. I need to just go through this. There is something in Article 15 where it does talk about frontage area. Oh, this is on page 14, under
14 of the old or new version?
new version,
14,
and it's under B1, newly constructed frontage buildings shall be located in a manner that
sorry.
Oh,
I gotta
I'm sorry.
find it first.
So page 14,
yeah,
B1.
yeah.
And then newly constructed frontage buildings shall be located in a manner that facilitates pedestrian and bicycle access along and across the frontage area of that property. And then right under it too, two parking or travel lanes shall not be located in the frontage area except where access driveways are approved. That's okay, there's a lot.
Then, in that case, I've still got issues with the definition of frontage area.
Okay,
To me, the frontage area should strictly be the area between the side of the building and either the lot line, the front lot line, or the street layout. Because using pavement, you could, I don't know what the benefit is of not being clear on that.
well, if we say lot area, the front, or the lot line,
I mean, the front.
if we say the lot line, that should work, because we're preserving the right-of-way is preserved. The right-of-way could go into the property.
No, they're
It shouldn't.
mutually exclusive, unless there's some type of surveying error. Because the
Right.
front lot line,
Yeah,
unless there's some strip of land, but then you don't have frontage. I mean,
Right.
You're either up against the street layout,
right,
or you're not, and if you're not, you have no frontage. I suppose technically, someone may own a strip of land 10 feet in front of a piece of property, and therefore the property has no frontage. But to me, the frontage area should be making reference to either the front lot line or the street
Okay.
layout.
We
Does-
still have a front yard setback.
yes, it's a separate,
So the building can't be closer than so many feet from the lot line.
correct,
Right.
In any case.
correct.
I'm not sure how that would,
I just, I'm trying to find the, this was just something that consultant from Horsley Witten had written.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
yeah.
Okay. I don't think there's going to be an issue if we say front, if we just say the property line, the front.
The front.
Property line. But again, what they had said, and this was in your packet, that the fronts, this is this document from Horsley Witten, and it says that the front setback is measured from the front line, while the frontage area is measured from the edge of the travel lane. This is important where the state has provided a sidewalk within the state right-of-way. For example, this would allow the applicant to build with a 0 front yard setback, but still meet the standard for pedestrian space across the front of the property. But I would think that this would still, if we use the front property line,
That would work.
that would still work. I don't see why that would be an issue. Because we can still dictate, if it's in the frontage area and it's the property line, which they, it's in their, the property owner's jurisdiction, we would, the planning board could still say, we want a pedestrian connection there. Or if there was work being done and they were proposing to do away with the sidewalk, you can still say no.
Well, they can't do away with the sidewalk.
Right.
They don't own it.
They don't own it. But if they set the building back, you might say, we want to have a crossing, a safe crossing to it. So I think that change works. I think that accomplishes this.
What change are you proposing?
So instead of the edge of the pavement of the street, we'll just put in the front property line. The area of lot between the facade of the main building and the front property line.
It says at a minimum, this area shall include sidewalks required to comply with the standard pedestrian circulation.
That's further down,
That's in the same sentence.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the last part.
Yeah,
So at a minimum, this area shall include.
yes,
What is-
it still works.
Are you requiring a sidewalk to comply with the standard pedestrian circulations in that area? What happens if the street, if the state, what are you saying, if the state had a sidewalk within their right of way? Then you're going to require another one? I guess that's.
Well, this whole area has sidewalks to it, but if they didn't, we would still, I think,
This says at a minimum, this area shall include sidewalk required to comply with the standards.
pedestrian standards. So one way you could look at that is if the building were set back 10, 20 feet, you would still require a pedestrian connection from that sidewalk to the front of that building. So that's a pedestrian connection which is allowed in the frontage area. But would not be allowed would be parking.
If you go with what I'm proposing for the definition, i.e. just the area between the front lot line and the front of the building, well, that by definition can't have a sidewalk on it unless it's a private sidewalk. I mean, if you put something up on West Main Street where it has a sidewalk, that sidewalk is in the street layout, and is also outside of the front lot line. So are you going to now count that area that is the sidewalk as part of the frontage area, even though the property owner doesn't own it?
No.
I don't-
No, that's
I'm not
not,
sure why
that's
that-
not saying it. That's not saying that.
Yeah.
What it's saying is what can and can't go in that area. So in the frontage area, what we're saying is provide infrastructure and amenities that promote walking. So you could put a pedestrian facility, whether it's a connection from the sidewalk to the entryway of the building.
I'm not, again, I'm not sure why we're putting that second sentence in here. If there are other areas, and there are other areas where I mean, this is a definition, it's not intended
Right.
to force something, we're just defining what the frontage area is. And there are other areas that say that, you have to provide pedestrian access. If that
Right.
pedestrian access already exists, then it's not incumbent on the
Yeah.
developer to put it.
We had initially taken that out, but then with the subcommittee, it was brought back in, and there are standards later on in Article 15 that talk about what can go in that frontage area, and in fact, I read a couple of them. So.
I think if we're doing it to the property line, I think what I agree with Joe is that if the definition is to the property line and not to the edge of the street, if it's to the edge of the street, then yes, it would have to include the sidewalk. Is that what you're, Yeah.
Facilitates pedestrian access.
and since we just changed it to the property line, that might be getting confusing.
We might, again, it might make sense to remove that second sentence.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if we're saying to the edge of the pavement.
Right.
With the old, the old wording there.
There may be an ability somewhere to require the developer to put a sidewalk in the right-of-way. if they can't get that done, then
Well, the only problem I have also with this language is if there's a taking and they widen the street, then if they're relying on the sidewalk that was put in, then we want to make sure that something else has to happen. We can't control that not being taken. So if this is relying on a sidewalk that's now in place, and they decide to widen that street, that sidewalk is gone. So that's the other problem with trying to define it in terms of what goes into that area. I'm not sure.
Yeah, all of these have sidewalks now, and the property lines are before the sidewalk, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not even included on it anyways.
No, but this is relying on, this says as a minimum, the area shall include
Yeah.
the sidewalk. And we're saying if it has a sidewalk already there, under this, you don't have to put one in. And I'm just saying, if it's there, they can't necessarily rely on it, because it's not necessarily theirs to rely on, because it can be taken. But this language in the back says, in a manner that facilitates pedestrian access along and across the frontage area. If you look-
Right, so we were.
Yeah, I think
trying
we
to-
can fix this quickly by just removing that last sentence. And making sure further down the line here, we agree that every building does have to have the
Right.
sidewalks. in front of
We
it.
feel like one of the things that we wanted to put in Article 15 was to give us the requirement, give the town, give the planning board the ability to say, you've got to put, we can do it anyway, but you do it now. We just want to make sure that this is really emphasized here, that it's that we want to make sure we have a safe place for pedestrians to go, safe and convenient. So I think if we strike that second sentence from at a minimum, we will be fine.
Everybody agree on that?
Shall we look at it in a manner that facilitates pedestrian access along?
So we're not changing the edge of the pavement of the street to just simply property line, though?
Front property line.
Yep. front
We are.
property.
The
that's-
front property
okay,
line.
And striking the second sentence.
Yeah.
Got it, thank you.
So at the edge of the property line? We're gonna go with-
Yeah, and it'll be so much easier to read too for,
Mhm.
the edge of the front property line, right?
yeah. So
Is
we're
that
just-
any different from the front yard setback? I mean, isn't that the front yard?
It's a different, this frontage area is not a standard. It's just a description of what that area between, essentially from the front of the building to the street, what we want to see there. A front yard setback and frontage are standards that have to be met. So I think that terminology was, that was one of the reasons he was responding to us, because when we reviewed it back in June or so, we were like, this frontage area is going to cause some confusion because we use it for, people are going to recognize it as something else. But anyway,
All right, so let's just go down from item to item.
Shop question.
I mean, housing, not that I want to change it, because I don't know where I checked. Top of the shop, for some reason, just bugs me. It sounds like, back of the bar. But in any case, you have right above it, definition of ground floor, which I understand, yet in housing, you refer to the ground level floor. I mean, to be consistent, why don't we just say that, occupies the, under housing, top of the shop, occupies the ground floor, because that's what you've got a definition for. And I would just suggest you eliminate the
Okay.
level.
that's fine.
Residential uses located where the non-resident uses occupies the ground level. Ground floor? So you're taking a level there, right?
Right,
Yeah.
because,
It's consistency.
and also on the next page, under 175-41, you've got, in that dark, it was the dark section, you keep saying first floor portion of the building, first floor residential dwellings, first floor gross floor area. Shouldn't that also be ground
Ground,
floor?
okay.
The Supposedly Witten had a comment on the store above grade plane. Is that something, need some clarification on what it's asking for here? Is that referencing this section? The third comment. on this page.
No, that was a question, this was regarding building code, about definitions and how it was being defined. I think that you were raising that there were some issues. It's back on the Horsley Witten document. It's the last comment. And we had a definition of story above grade plane in the IBC, in the building code.
Yeah, story above grade plane, there's an average grade plane, that's the building level, so it's sort of like a bank building. The average above grade plane has to be more than 6 feet, or any point above 12 feet, it's considered an out-story. So there's definitions in the IBC. You need clarity on this, or what?
I don't know, I just didn't know. what to say.
No.
Yeah,
no,
I'd like to keep just going right through this here.
Yeah,
so we
I
can-
think that's been resolved with this, so I think we're fine. Okay, so we'll make those changes on page 3.
All right, anything else on page 3? There wasn't anything significant on 4 either, right? Or 5?
The only question I had is under the allowed uses, village core commercial, the second item down, horticulture, floriculture, and minor agriculture. I mean, why would you want to allow that in this area?
Where were you on,
Flower
On
shop?
what page?
Page 4,
four.
allowed uses. Well, that's the sale. This refers to the growing.
yeah.
Agriculture is exempt in any zone.
I'm sorry?
Agriculture is exempt in any zone, it's allowed use in any zone,
Well,
agriculture.
I think we've had conversations with town council about it. It's not necessarily allowed everywhere, but you have to make sure the zoning allows for it. Because we did later on prohibit some things that are
Orange and
agricultural
orchids and
related. So we could take that out and put it as a no.
I would check with council before putting a no on
I
that
thought
one.
agriculture was allowed 5 acres, but
I think it goes back to something on the Dover, is it Dover?
Yeah.
Or,
Well, but this is something we had looked at.
I remember hearing a specific reason for that. I can't remember it, though. I would check with council first.
I think it's at 48, 102, it's right at the front. I don't have that with me.
that was no big deal, I was just curious.
No, I mean,
No,
I'd
it's a
like
good-
to see it, if we can take it out, I just not have it there.
We can take it out, can we take it out?
Yeah, just do
Yeah.
that. Ask
Yeah,
Julie to make
if
sure
we're
that's
able
okay.
to.
Because we had, remember, Warren, Julie, when we had
Yeah.
that conversation about a
Yeah.
few others,
About
you'll see, we
farms.
took them out.
There was
Yeah, we
farms
did.
and livestock and.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
we,
if she's, if
Orchids.
she's okay with that, I think that's fine.
because we got clearance that, if you look on page 5, we took out rabbits and poultry, and the response was,
But then there's a yes for roadside stands.
sure, well, you could have a
Yeah, well, yeah.
vegetable stand, could be a
Yeah.
good
That was
use
us
there.
saying, okay, but the other ones were farm, orchards, nurseries.
Yeah.
greenhouse. Yeah.
So I would just say, I think we're fine if we go with no. Because it's still allowed everywhere else.
I'd be more comfortable if you just double check with council
Sure.
and make sure that that's okay to pull out.
Okay. Okay, will do.
Anything else on page 5?
I just have one question. Multifamily dwelling, yes, no. I think we talked about that a little bit before, going back to page 3, but does that allow, like, uses to just come in without a special permit that we may not be thinking about? I get, maybe there's a description of multifamily dwelling that protects us, but, for example, like, I know where the furniture maker is on Mansfield Ave. I think there's a multifamily building going up there. Like, does this mean we could have one of those in the village forest center as well?
Well, a couple things there. So 3 units or more attached units would trigger a site plan to begin with, so that would be coming
Okay.
forward. And then we did add the provisions on page 3, right above it, that talk about the need to require retail on the first floor. So it wouldn't be just a standalone apartment building.
Is there any harm in having a special permit for that, just so we can see it and prove it and such? Or maybe I'm just being overprotective. I'm trying to think, multifamily dwelling, what could actually, what could that actually include with no permit being required at all?
I think that would be a shop with 2 units above it, and then anything
No,
above that would
this
be a
doesn't
special
say that.
permit.
This doesn't say top of the shop. This
But
is
is there a risk
multifamily.
there? That's what our intention
Yeah.
is. I understand that our vision is, but if a developer comes in and they just see.
Wanna put an apartment building
Yes.
up.
But it's right above it, it says in the village, that darkened section, the Village Center Core District, no dwelling unit nor any internal space associated with a dwelling unit shall occupy any first floor portion of the building. So you could put up a multifamily building, but the bottom floor would have to be commercial. And I mean, that's frankly, as I understand it, the intent of this whole thing is to encourage mixed use. So that's.
So I guess the
Right.
question is, how is that different from top of the shop housing? Does it give you a sense that there's something different between the two?
So I view them the same.
Multifamily dwelling, a building such as an apartment house containing 3 or more dwelling units with independent cooking and sleeping facilities. That's our definition.
I see what you're saying, because we now have that new use, top of the shop housing is yes.
And
So
what is
we
that?
could eliminate multi-family dwelling.
Or put it as a
that in
special
no.
permit, because I see what you're saying, Kevin. If somebody comes in and they want to build just a 3-story,
Or to find a way to circumvent our
Yeah.
zoning, like
Right.
if they put
It
it
raises the
all on the
question-
second floor and third floor and fourth floor, like,
I think Joe had it right. It's in 4.1. It says it right there, Village Core Center, no dwelling unit or any internal space associated with a dwelling unit shall occupy any of the first floor portion of the building facing the street. So I think you have it covered there.
yeah.
Yeah, except you have the two uses that are,
Exactly.
Since,
well, I mean, we have it covered, but you know how some aggressive developers, they could read it literally. Okay, well, the building's not going to be facing onto the street, so that paragraph doesn't apply to our plan or something. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a little extra protection in there.
I mean, maybe putting that, I mean, top of the shop, if it's basically the same, we're saying you can go do it. If it's something other than top of the shop, that's defined multifamily and any other special permit. So we're raising, if they claim a difference to it, they can come in, I want to be top of the shop, go ahead. If you want to do something other than top of the shop, come to us and tell us what you're doing.
Okay. And Kevin, just to your point, in the design standards, if they came in and said, we're not fronting the street, we're going to go, yeah, you are, because the standards do clearly say entryways have to front the street, the main street, so
Well,
it's a tightening up of.
Maybe I'm
of-
thinking of it in terms of like the average voter at town meeting. You know, they're gonna
Yeah.
look down at the 2 columns and look at the VC and how does the VCC differ from the VC? And they're gonna find, I mean, we talked about 5 minutes, they could talk about it for 50 minutes and then it could, sway enough people to vote against it because they're afraid of what a multi-family dwelling could be, even though we're saying it can't be on the first floor,
That's the whole point of those outreach. As soon as we do
I know, but
Yeah.
like I said at the last meeting, you're not gonna get as many people at the outreach as you are at the town meeting.
True.
so the question then becomes, since we're covered by both that darkened area above and the top of the shop housing in the use table that says yes, should multifamily dwelling under VCC be a special permit or an outright no? I mean, if we're looking to encourage retail or commercial on the first floor, residential above, then why even, notwithstanding the fact that darkened area.
Well, that's a great point,
Yeah.
because it's really, we're talking top of the shop buildings.
Yeah, I would say no then.
Yeah, just so there's no
That was the
confusion.
choice, yeah.
Because it, on the one hand, you're saying, yes, it's allowed, but the permitted uses, that darkened area says no.
Yeah, I don't like that inconsistency. It looks-
that's a good point.
Basically, everything's got to be top of the shop, and we have a category, and we have another category. What's the purpose of the other category?
Yeah.
It's not,
So,
See, I
So
told
we-
you we'd agree on some things.
so multifamily will be no?
No.
no? Okay.
What do you guys think,
I
Julie?
agree.
That's fine.
That was a good catch on that one, Kevin.
And see, anywhere where it says special permit or yes under VC, if VCC says anything
Different.
different, then we need to know why, right?
We'll-
Now, sometimes
We've got to
it's,
be prepared to say why.
Well,
Sometimes
I'm
it's
okay
more-
with the golf course there, just so you all know.
you know, it's okay to be more restrictive, like the nonprofit fraternal lodge, we're more restrictive, special permit versus,
Gas stations, no.
Yeah.
VCC. So anything that's auto-oriented, we've,
anything that's less restrictive would be a
Yeah.
red flag in my mind, and that was less restrictive, so.
Yeah, everything else
Yeah.
is either more restrictive or the same.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That's going to come up in how you justify it.
Hmm.
Things are going to be asked to what, and that'll pop out to people.
Any other questions on these tables?
We're going to have to adjust the marijuana section to
Yeah.
to comply with what the marijuana laws look like.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So after this is, whatever happens at town meeting, I'll be having to edit. Yeah.
You may want to just, maybe put a flash in here or something saying, subject to marijuana, so they know that they're voting, because if we're doing it together, or if this is going to be showing different than that, we want to just note that it's subject to the vote on the marijuana law, bylaw. So right now, this is inconsistent with what's in, they're proposing.
Right.
So unless we're going to have one thing doing both, which I don't think we're going to be doing, we ought to make a note in here, or just highlight it, this is subject to, what's ultimately determined under the marijuana bylaw.
Yeah.
So it's not standing out as being different.
Well, that would be like part of the presentation, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
don't want
I-
to confuse the two, or not knowing what's going to happen with the marijuana
Just highlight,
bylaw.
just to highlight it with a note, just say, so they
Yeah,
don't see.
that can be part of the presentation.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
this
If
point.
they pass this, and then it passed the other at the same time.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Right,
So-
then we have to match.
So,
Yeah.
Page 5, home craftsman shops, no employees, single-family residences aren't allowed in this PCC, so that should probably be a no.
On page 5, Chris?
5, yeah, home craftsman shop, no employees, bottom section.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
No.
Chris, what about these other home occupation provisions? Are they okay?
Same reason they should be no as well. Because home occupation is about home, single-family home occupied 25% or less by a business.
Couldn't the
And
top,
zoning bylaws go back to, the 70s when this was a residential community, so, yeah, that should be taken out, any home occupation.
well, couldn't that, if a person was in a top floor of a mixed-use building, couldn't they still
Yeah,
have a
like
home
therapist's
occupation?
office or a,
Accountant seeing,
Well, go back into that definition, I mean, there's 3 persons employed. Do you really want someone in a small place with three employees?
Well,
On
the-
top of the shop, or an apartment-style multifamily?
Well,
I'm thinking that on page 6, the home occupation, including professional offices,
the second one.
provided there are no employees, yeah, the second
Yeah.
one.
No employees.
Yeah, that one I'm okay with, but I agree with Chris on the other one.
And the one above it's just one other employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
So maybe the one, but not the three.
Well, what are we?
Yeah, I agree with the
Okay.
number three.
Are we trying, this is kind of like a mixed-use development. Zone,
Right.
So we're trying to encourage a combination of residences, shopping, businesses, offices, right? Kind of like a blended
Right.
zone, am
would
I
we,
right?
would we be upset with an office on the second floor that shows?
They could still do it. They could still do an office on the second floor.
Couldn't be a resident.
I guess, though, if you had 3 employees in essentially an apartment building on this, that might be a little too much traffic for
Yeah, So
people.
now you have a residential apartment or multifamily, and then now you have a kind of an office, so the idea is to separate.
Yeah.
zones.
Yeah,
I think if you had 1 or 0, that's fine, but 3 probably crosses that line.
Well, are we limiting, okay, can the above store be office space?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
So,
the whole office could be.
or the first, second floor could be office space. and
Could be.
The
Yeah,
third
they-
floor, the fourth floor could be residential. So,
But as long as no more than 3 people work there, though.
well, no, if it's
Well, that's
if it's
what
an
that one-
office, you can have an office.
See, then you get into change of use and a new occupancy permit. So I'm gonna issue an occupancy permit for a residence, or I'm gonna issue an occupancy permit for a built business, and there's different rules apply to both. So I need to know kind of what's going on in there. So if we say yes and no, and then maybe and 25%, then it's convoluted and ambiguous, and it becomes very difficult to enforce. So it's, it should be
Make it
one
an
or the
office
other.
and.
I'm fine with the no employees.
Soccer,
Like I said, I mean, that could be like a therapist that sees people in their home with no employees. I mean, that's something that I don't think would cause an issue, but,
Yeah, I think if you keep it at that 25%, I think you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
so no to the 3 employees and yes to the other 2
Are we okay with 25%?
with 1 employee?
Is that okay? One?
One with 25%, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we've always gone.
So the 3 is a no and the other 2 are yeses?
Yeah.
Okay. Might that need a special permit? Because if it starts off as a residence and all of a sudden they have customers coming to their space, does parking conditions vary what they're gonna need?
So that's why you want to keep to the one
Yeah.
partner, one employee.
But it
person.
doesn't limit the customers, does it?
So I do make them sign an affidavit when they come in for this 25% rule, that, no signs, no employees, no GBW 6,000. So I make them sign an affidavit and I store it, and then I make them have a business certificate as well. So we are documenting everything, and we're trying to keep it right.
Does the designation of a home office, home occupation allow for customers to come? Or is it just no customers? Is that an issue?
We don't really define that.
So that's the only question I was having, if you have, something where you're gonna be having people coming up to the house as customers, you have parking issues.
Most of the home offices are people, telecommuting from work that I see. But, some people are doing sales, but there are no sales signs, signage available, or no outside storage. So that's typical. But again, these have all been written for single-family residents.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
so
what
it's
I'm
tough
wondering.
trying to apply it. Yeah, that's why I was just saying, just say no across the board, and then just have administrative offices, which are allowed, but.
I mean, I think I'm concerned with that, I agree, and maybe, the only thing I was thinking of is maybe make it a special permit, so they come in and saying, what are you gonna do, do you have, customers, what kind of parking is it gonna be required? So we can at least ask the question rather than just saying no, at least those 2, I mean, with 3 employees, I think definitely we should say no, that's a different operation. With 1 possibly, I mean, certainly with 0 anyway, I'm not as concerned. But maybe making those a special permit, so at least they come, even if it goes back to you guys, it could be a review under that procedure, to make sure what are they gonna be doing.
Additional parking is
Yeah,
needed.
so that's-
Yeah, put a caveat in there for something like that, Warren.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if we'd go so far as a special permit, but definitely,
well, no,
Yeah,
I wanna trigger that, I wanna trigger the review by.
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Chris and
Sure, how about a caveat for parking then?
yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Now, if there was an older building there that somebody wanted to move in this zone, and let's say they wanted to renovate the second floor and turn it into a yoga studio or a dance studio, right, which would really be attractive, bring people into the zone, help support the local shops, and there'd be a place across the street, and any other, like, sub-shops may want to open up in the zone. That's a good thing, that's what we want, but are we
Right.
going to be restricting that if they have more than 3 employees? Like, don't we want to bring,
But that's not.
Well, this is for
Well, that's
home
a-
occupation.
That's a home occupation.
Yeah, this is just for home occupation.
So if they wanted to do a business, then you're fine, but if its primary use is their residence, then
That's when
we
it
need to
becomes
be
a problem.
careful about the flow of commercial traffic in a residential, on a residential floor.
so it
But
doesn't matter
typic-
if they live on the first floor, it's not, would be considered a home occupation, it would be an actual business, like the description I just gave.
They couldn't live on the first floor unless it's already existing.
Yeah.
But they would be able to have a staff of 6, because now it's a business, it's not a home occupation.
Well, if that's what their use is determined to be.
Right. We would allow basically a residence in the back half of a store, but it would be a separate residence. The front half would be office or retail, and the back half would have to be, they could live next,
Okay.
behind it, but they'd have to qualify for both, I think.
Okay, so when we say home occupation, professional offices, we're
It's out of your
talking
home.
about somebody who works out of their house?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
So Kevin,
Yeah.
the building codes are fairly restrictive for residential, I should say a little lenient to make it easier to build houses. But they get more restrictive when we go to business. So that's why I need to define what is it primary business or primary residential? Because then there's a different set of rules that apply.
got it.
Yeah, and that's why is that why you said that, 25% floor area is okay? You get to 50% and then is it a residence, is it a business? Yeah.
So how did you want to do with those two? Is you want to do it just,
Well, we said no on the
the first one?
Three.
Yeah.
And yes on the other two.
And then you can put an asterisk with a caveat for parking
Yeah.
pursuant to the planning director and building commissioner sign off.
Yeah, and that will answer your question, Lauren, right? All right, anything else on that page? Page 6 or 7?
Hold on a second. Page 8, the minimum distance between buildings shall be. um,
This one you just put the right article in, right?
Yes.
If we,
So on page 8, part D, you just corrected the article number.
Well, just added the word article.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Joe had
I
pointed
thought
out.
the number wasn't there.
No, it was the word article that was missing.
No article is there.
The number wasn't?
The number
I know,
wasn't.
yeah, I don't have the old version here. All right, anything on page 8 or 9?
9, you have, again, under Village Core Commercial, minimum side yard for principal building, 10 feet, and then a side, the one below that is also 10 feet, but you've got a footnote of 1, and the footnote says setback could be decreased. Shouldn't that be distance setback typically refers to setback from the road.
A side setback or a rear setback.
Is that the term of art? And there's no,
Right, yeah, we have rear, side, and front setbacks.
okay.
So is the, Joe, would you want us to add the word distance?
Well, I mean, it's setback, I'm more accustomed to setback referring to front setback. Sideline is, I've never heard the word setback used in the handling of sideline. And that's why I was suggesting, rather than setback, it just would say distance, because it's a footnote. But is there a
We
definition?
have side yard and rear yard, you're right, Joe. Side yard, front yard. So we don't have front setback, we have front yard, side yard, rear yard.
So so that there's no confusion, I was suggesting, rather than use the word in the footnote, setback, use the word distance, because it's
Side
referring
yard.
10 feet,
Yeah.
so that distance could be decreased based on a special permit.
You want to just copy what's up above and says side yard, and then continue it down below, side yard could be decreased.
Well, I think it works fine if we
Yes,
just say
side yard is-
distance.
Yeah.
Either,
Because you have the footnote. The footnote's going to be,
Okay,
that's going to trigger it anyway, so both of them are for side yard, but I think it's fine if we just say distance could be decreased pursuant to a special permit.
Go up one. Are we allowing for a minimum front yard of 0?
so that if there's an existing sidewalk, the building could go right up against the sidewalk.
Okay, so but now you're having.
Assuming the sidewalk is along the edge of the right-of-way.
Right.
But, okay, so then my same question, what happens if that sidewalk gets taken?
By
Well, I mean,
State.
the state.
that could happen regardless.
Yeah, but we got 0, so there's no street.
But elsewhere, don't we have some
You have
sidewalk
maximum,
requirements?
you have maximum front yard of 40 feet. So that's now from the, so it has to be at least 40 feet away.
Even if we don't have the sidewalk taken away, why would we want 0? Why would we want the building right up against the sidewalk?
Because I think what the intent of this is to have it look like a downtown
Yeah, but
urban.
if the sidewalk's here, you don't have to build them right like that.
Even Portsmouth doesn't have 300-year-old houses that are sitting right on the sidewalk.
But
No, but-
Mansfield does,
Attleboro,
Foxborough does.
Taunton,
Really?
Mansfield.
Yeah,
Like you have the sidewalk and you have the building right
right there, yep,
Yep.
sure do.
But don't we want a little bit of a buffer, like 10 feet or something?
You could, I mean, this.
What about maintenance and plowing and everything, like?
Well, again, you could, although, even if you have the distance, you're still going to have the maintenance with shoveling and so forth, but
we're gonna-
the 0 to 40 gives you that flexibility to say, if you thought it was proper to set it back or move it up, you can do that. So one of the benefits of these standards is it gives you more flexibility to be able to move buildings around. But from a maintenance, I don't know that setting a building back 10 feet or having it right up on the sidewalk creates maintenance issues in terms of shoveling sidewalks. In fact, it probably
If
makes
throw
it
in-
easier for
throw it
them
in the
since.
street instead.
Chris, what's the typical width of a sidewalk?
I can't say that there is, I mean, minimum would be 3, and then I've seen them 6 and 8, so,
This is-
again, it's gonna come before the board, all these buildings, so you're gonna look at them anyway.
No,
So this is,
they're not all
around
coming.
here, it's probably, in this area,
think
they're
they're
probably
four
about
or five.
4 to 5 feet wide. They're not very wide.
I mean, I'm concerned with, it's a state road, we don't control it, it could be taken to be widened. At that point, you have a building on the street.
And that's a fair point, but I guess as the town, what do you want to see in this area?
I don't care about the town, I don't control that road, it's a state road. The state
Right,
road takes
but-
it, they have a
but
building
you
on the
control
street.
what's off of it. And, for them to widen it is going to obviously be a big undertaking.
You sent me the
What I want to see, to answer your question, is I don't want to see a building right up against a paved sidewalk. I want to see at least 10 feet back.
but
Yeah, that's,
I'm trying to understand what the goal is here, and I thought the goal was to allow for an urbanized center, for lack of a better term.
Which would-
Much as you see in Attleboro, Taunton, Mansfield. Mansfield has allowed everything, all this new stuff. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's a requirement, but it may be moot because, Paul, you sent me that email that gave the road layouts.
Yeah.
And right now, let's see if I can find that.
This area, it's on Mansfield Ave.
West Main Street is
West Main.
55 feet.
Yeah.
And in fact, I measured it when you and I were at odds, Orin, about the turning on Taunton Avenue. West Main Street, the pavement is 29 feet.
Okay.
And yet the street layout is, according to the email we got, that I got from Paul, is 55 feet. So my point is
that's
simply that.
30, It's 15 feet, that's 7 feet on either side.
I'm sorry?
That's 7.5 feet on either side.
No, it's 55 feet,
Minus 20
and
minus-
it's 29 feet at the common.
So 30 minus
So
this.
that's 25 feet, so 12 and a half feet on either side of the pavement. And
No, it's
this,
30 minus 25 is like 25 feet, so 12 feet. Okay.
so it's, and if the sidewalk is 6, that's still, the property line has to be 6 feet back from the sidewalk. So it's somewhat moot, but even if it weren't, again, unless I misunderstood what we were trying to do here, my thought was that the intent was to allow for, I'll call it congestion. I'll call it, building congestion that comes right up to the street as opposed to like a shopping strip.
Right.
But if you go down the rest of this, we're asking them to put benches in, we're asking them to put bike racks in, we're asking them to put a whole bunch of stuff in, that now, if they're up to the building line, to the right of way, they don't have the ability to do that in front of
Do it on the
this.
sideline.
Well, we say in the front of the building.
Is it?
Front and side.
Huh?
But what's
Front
wrong
and
with
side.
what's wrong with a grass buffer between your sidewalk and your building? I don't know why Mansfield has it, but, I mean, we have a little bit more land than Mansfield, and I don't think this intent was to build congestion, it was to build an attractive.
I don't,
This is the
it's to
illustration
build
that they gave us on
compactness.
the board.
Do not use congestion when the public, you will have
I don't know, that-
cost us all of
Joe's-
this if we
Joe's-
use that term.
Joe's word. Yeah.
Right.
Now, anything that's different from regular village commercial, again, we're gonna have to explain. So like everything else, side yard, rear yard, it's exactly the same. And just front yard, we make a 0 instead of 10.
I mean, I think if you leave 10 and maybe put this, the front lot, can be decreased with the same special permit or something like that. So I think we ought to know what they're doing if it's something less than at least 10 feet.
Well, to Joe's point, I mean, if you put 10 feet in there, you get 10 plus you have another 7, and then the sidewalk, and now you got everything pushed back, 17 feet plus. I think that goes against what we're trying to do.
But this is,
Paul,
they,
didn't the wording come from directly from Horsley and Witten? And haven't they worked with numerous towns with these same,
Yeah.
same definitions?
I mean, these are,
Numerous towns.
these
I'm not
are
gonna write on this,
standards
but
that are fairly typical in
But
New
that-
England, right in this
The
area.
problem with that-
The property line is probably right here. So the property line's in here, you push this building back another 10 feet, it's,
But beyond that, this isn't, help me out if I misunderstand what people are trying to accomplish, but this isn't what we're trying to generate in the center of town. Again, Horsley Witten aside, maybe they're suggesting it, and maybe I'm just on the wrong page.
that's the core.
I understand that, but we have something in here which I have a little bit of an issue with, that says the first floor has to be 11 feet tall. Now, how would to me, I don't want to, I wouldn't want to see a 3-story building with 11 feet on the first floor, 2 upper floors of residential pushed back. To me, if we're going to have it, it ought to be in your face, for lack of a better term, and have a centralized business court. I thought that's what we were shooting for.
Well, you had the great idea as far as Cumberland Farms of having the pergola and the setback and the bikes and everything, and so I'm surprised that you're saying that. It's almost like you're arguing the
Well,
opposite.
Because we didn't have these regulations, and again, Cumberland Farms isn't what I would typically expect to see generated as a result of this effort. And again, I'm not saying that I'm a fan of it, but I look at what Mansfield has done in the last 5 years, and everything that's been built is right up against the sidewalk and is 3 and 4 stories high, and is retail on the bottom, or commercial on the bottom, and residential on the top. I thought that's what we were aiming for. My point is simply, if that is what we're aiming for, then we ought to put in place zoning that generates that. If that's not what we're looking for, then I'm on the wrong page. And
So why don't we,
Then I'm on the wrong page, too.
why don't we compromise and put it at 10 feet, but with that side note that says distance could be decreased pursuant to a special permit? I
That's
mean,
good.
if they want to go at 0, we have to look at the entire situation, see how, see what's in front of it.
That works for me. I mean, bottom line is,
That way that there's an option, and then we can say, well, this is the reason why we did this.
bottom
We didn't
line
want
is,
it-
nothing's gonna happen if it doesn't get passed at the town meeting. And
Yeah,
back to my point about the other elements of the, your 0, people are gonna say, well, what Joe just described is
Yeah.
not what I want in my downtown Norton.
And that's
You
fine.
know, 3/4 of the people in the town meeting
and
could say that.
if we put 10, but the option to lower it with a special permit, that would ease, I think, some concerns.
So I could just add the footnote, add the number 1 footnote, which is the same,
Yeah.
which is distance could be decreased pursuant to a special permit.
Okay, instead of front yard?
So we'll set it at 10 feet, and then with the footnote of 1.
Paul, can I interject at this point?
Thank you.
Prior to the meeting, you pointed out something in one of these changes where you said that that frontage area includes sidewalk, must include sidewalk and bike lanes. Doesn't that apply here?
Yeah.
Where is that? Didn't you show me something in these new?
Well, we're just saying in the frontage area, it should include
Yeah.
Sidewalk.
pedestrian and bicycle
Right,
amenities,
so then
infrastructure.
That's gonna help establish that 10-foot that you're looking for, right?
That could help it, sure, because then we would say that in that 10 feet, you need to be putting in outdoor seating, lighting.
Yeah, you have,
I agree, I completely agree with Kevin on this now. I think bringing it to town meeting with the 0 is going to cause a lot of red flags from some people, and I think, I agree with what you're saying, Chris, but,
We get the solution. We put an asterisk and we get the special permit
Okay.
option.
yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything right up against, I don't think there will be, because of
Sure.
that.
We're just trying to get all the points up.
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah,
So 10 with an asterisk?
yep.
That was a roundabout way of getting there, huh?
yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll bring up another, why would we allow a building higher than we do in regular village commercial? And-
'Cause again, you're-
And commercial,
You're trying to
and
promote
industrial.
more compact development. That's the rationale for it.
Yeah, because also you got the first story is going to be retail.
Yeah, the first one's retail.
So we've got I'm just trying to think, a maximum front yard, I understand, is 40 feet. Are there any of the uses that really that we're permitting, that don't lead themselves to be that close, or
I'm sorry.
are there any uses?
No, I
that
wouldn't,
permitted
that's a good question, but I would say,
That would prohibit that being that close? I'm just-
actually, to that point, one of the reasons we're trying to get buildings closer to the street is to move them farther away from the back.
No, I
And in
agree
this
with you.
area,
I just was trying to.
well, just think, in this area, we have residences right
Behind everything,
behind
yeah.
them, so the more we can push them closer
No,
to.
no, I agree, I just didn't
you
know whether or not.
But no, I think we've eliminated the uses that really wouldn't be compatible with
Okay.
with the adjacent residential,
Got it.
or, things that would be inappropriate for trying to promote walkability.
To Kevin's point in terms of the 60 feet, I'm more concerned with how people will react, that we'd have a 60-foot building where everywhere else is 45, or at best 50, I guess, is that the industrial area. But in any case, why not list it at
45 with the special permit?
45
Yeah.
with another 1?
Yeah, I think that makes it easier to sell.
Could be increased with a special
Yeah,
permit.
Yeah, but it would have to be increased, not
Yeah,
decreased.
so
So that
it'd
would
be
be
number 3.
number 2. Oh, that's percentage.
Yeah,
Two is-
so
Okay,
you do it
three.
with three.
Well, either that or we just add under that, the text of the footnote, distance could be increased or decreased.
Now you have to change the next one also, maximum height in stories, because then that's gonna affect it.
Yeah.
So I would suggest leaving it where it is. The whole idea is to increase or entice building.
I'm sorry, Chris?
You'd have to do four stories also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because we increased the stories.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to have it higher then.
So again, this is to entice building and constructing in a denser and higher. We already allow buildings in the last row. You'll see heights of chimneys, domes, spires are already allowed to be at 65 feet. So we have churches, buildings, and in Wheaton has buildings that exceed this height distance already. I don't think it's going to be overpowering to add that extra 15 feet. That's just my point.
Well, I mean, we got outdoor lighting for non-residential use in excess of 30 feet. That's not allowed in this new zone. But yet we're going to have buildings that are twice that high, that are going to have lights in the windows and such, so a little bit of a conflict there.
Well, lights in the windows are different than the outdoor lighting. That can be
Those could be really
distracting.
obnoxious for people, or obnoxious, but noxious to people around them. And you don't
My
want
own
that as a
front light is
primary
obnoxious,
use.
so.
The other thing I would say too, the benefit of the reason for the 4 stories is, as you build up, buildings become a lot more expensive. So there's a reason you don't see too many 3-story buildings, because now you add elevators in them. If you give them that extra floor, it makes their numbers pencil out more. That's just a consideration why we would leave it at that.
But a 4-story building, and we have something in here that says the first floor has to be 11 feet minimum, but
Construction
typical-
and then 8 feet, so you're talking 10 feet minimum per story, minimum.
So you've got 41 feet for 4 stories. I mean, residential doesn't go more than 10 feet unless you
Then you're
get-
talking a roof line, and you're
Right.
talking
But that's,
gable ends.
but that, okay.
Usually a story is a lot more than 10, it's usually around 12 for a commercial.
So we're adding a story, so going from 3 to 4 and adding 15 feet.
But then you have to add for parapets and roof lines, and that's why you get to the 65. So you're talking a 12-pitch roof, and then you're gonna add,
Oh, I understand how the numbers work.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, like I've been saying all along, people are gonna sit there and they're gonna go down and they're gonna say, okay, good, good, good. Maximum height in stories, 4 stories versus 3 everywhere else in town? You're gonna, I'm gonna have a 4-foot a 60-foot building right
well, again, go
in the
back over to
village.
Mansfield and see what they're building there, and that's what
I
we're
know,
trying to
I
encourage.
Right.
I understand
Well,
the
I-
arguments, but the votes are gonna, shake themselves out.
Well, that's what we're trying to get these public opinions, and then we'll talk it out there.
Yeah.
To explain the equity of it and the space and the value of it.
And Mansfield, one of the things we have to certainly keep in mind is the new buildings are really there because of the T-stop. But there are some old buildings there that were primarily 2 stories that have been around for a long time. Actually, some very nice buildings right up to the street, retail on the bottom and what looks like residential above. So, I think we're going to have to work beforehand to figure out a story for the building height on it. It's certainly not a death knell if it goes back to the village commercial height. It's just, we're trying to incentivize, and this is a fairly limited area. And if people are concerned, it's like, well, most of these buildings, we're trying to push closer to the street, so farther away from the residential areas. And this area would probably be an area that can absorb a taller building. Certainly, we wouldn't be promoting it in many other parts of town, without further studies. I mean, I don't know where 4 stories here would be appropriate, other than this area.
No, I get it. I mean,
Yeah,
I understand, it's just that.
Yeah. No,
I mean, there are
we're
people
talking-
that- There are people that moved to Norton because they didn't like the way downtown Mansfield is laid out. So you're gonna have
Yeah.
a lot of debate.
oh, sure.
And we really want it to pass because we want to improve, we want something better.
Sure.
Than what we have today.
I agree with you, Kevin.
Yeah.
For any vote, you're gonna have a third of the people that are gonna be against it, are to be, for it, and a third that are not gonna be ignorant of the facts, so I'm gonna have to educate them. So we're looking for that 2/3 or 50% that we can get this
Yeah.
through by. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not
Yeah.
gonna please everybody.
But I think
That's all.
it's,
agree
this
with
is important, so we're gonna have to work on, flushing out what people's issues are with it, but have, have a better rationale for why we had put 4 stories in.
Yeah, we could have the public hearing and every single person could say, absolutely not, that's ridiculous. And then at that point, we reevaluate and make a change, but,
And I think telling the story visually is gonna help too.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know, like,
absolutely.
I think we need to have demonstrative samples of what this is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I think people are scared when they just look at numbers, but if you can show them what that
Right.
actually means in reality, it's helpful.
Yeah, because on paper, you're right, the increase looks,
So we've been working on a
Dramatic.
presentation
Right.
as a template for when we go out to different groups in the hopes that we can pull certain things out of the presentation. But I've been going out and taking a lot of photos, and then the consultant gave us the photos they've given us from theirs, which hopefully will help, people understand what this would look like. Because again, we're not trying to be Manhattan or Back Bay. We're trying to be Norton, but also realize there are other areas immediately around us which are different, but they have it. Foxborough around their circle has 2 and 3 stories. Easton does as well. And they've really done a great job in the last number of years getting those areas renovated. And this is all about trying to get this area activated. So, but I think we have to really look at that, because I know building height, anywhere you go, building height is the thing that scares people the most. So we need to make sure we can address that.
But we're getting requests for these buildings now as we speak. They're looking for variances on a couple areas in town now, so we're getting requests for these style buildings.
This can't.
Because of what Paul said earlier, equity of size, in space.
I'm not saying, to exclude them. I'm just saying require a special permit so we can go through the process of hearing each individual project with public input. That's all I'm saying. If it was up, I'm the minority here, but if it was up to me, I would follow the same trend that we were doing with the setback and with the asterisk, and just make it 3 height and 45 foot in height and 3 stories, and just put an asterisk under there
If we,
for those as well. But I'm the minority here, so.
No, can I just, I'm not playing devil's advocate, but one thing that I wonder if we were to go that route of setting it at the lower, bring it down to 45 with the asterisk saying it can go up, now we're going to have 3 separate footnotes saying it could change, it could be reduced, it could go up. Is the public going to view that as a lack of surety?
yeah.
I mean,
They're
you
gonna know
could come
that-
back and say, well, we have a special permit, they still have to get to. But could people look at that and go, well, you have all these exceptions now that that standard could,
I don't think so, because
Okay. Okay.
the alternative is to just make it within zone yeses all
Yeah.
the way down. I mean, with
Okay.
no special permit process. That's the alternative,
okay.
Well, that would need a special
That's
permit
what-
anyways,
No,
at
but
4th floor.
But I also, once we're getting up to that 4th floor, and again, given this parking and traffic challenged area, maybe it wouldn't be appropriate to start asking for it. You can get a motel in there, you're getting other things up there that can go that height. And maybe at that point, there is a reason for consideration. It doesn't, listen, someone going up that high knows they got to go do something more. They're going to be dealing with more. And I don't know if, especially it's standing out from everything else, and everybody else we're suspecting would stay within the 2 or 3 stories, to go up to a 4th story may stand out. And I think that'd be the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah.
And so maybe
Yeah.
if that is,
Yep.
we want to get a sense of, if everybody else is building at 3 and this guy wants to come to 4, maybe we have an issue for it. Maybe it's more intensive a use. So I don't know that I'd have a problem calling out for a special permit if we were going up. And I don't think that would, I think it's clear to us as saying, listen, this is the model that we've worked with before. We want to be able to give people the opportunity to expand on it. How that expansion gets utilized in this particular area, we want to be more sensitive to. It's not a matter of not being clear. We don't want to just give them that right. We want to encourage it. And to tell you the truth, that's something we're looking to do. But certainly there are more challenges when they start getting to that size. And again, it's a smaller footprint, smaller square footage requirement.
Right.
They're going up. How that's going to affect what the parking is not going to be fixed. So all of those things really come into play that I'm not uncomfortable asking for a special permit for an extra height myself.
But if, again, to go back to Paul's point, we're trying to have continuity within the shape of the buildings and the heights of the buildings. So if one special permit doesn't allow it, and the next one does, and so there's not gonna be symmetry in size and shape, and so you have to look at that as well.
At what point do they have to put an elevator in? Is it requirements by state law?
So it's an ADA requirement. It's a federal statute. It's an accessible route for residential, and then if it's the business that's open to a public. So yes, they have to have it accessible.
So the residential, these all require elevators, even if it's 2 stories or 3 stories?
So a residential unit has to have so residential apartment building has to have so many accessible units, but they also have to have an accessible route throughout the building for visitors. So yes, a lot of these will have to have buildings unless they can show that they're providing the same services on the ground floor that they are on the uppers. So it's hard to fight either way. So a lot of these are going to have elevators.
Yeah, if that being the case, that expense will probably foster higher buildings.
That's why they need these higher buildings. So it's not going to pay to have a building with 3 floor with an elevator. That's why we're pushing for 4.
Right.
So I would strongly suggest you keep it at 4 and the same height, and then and then sell that pitch at the town meeting and these meetings prior to it.
Whatever the committee wants
Yeah.
to do with
Maybe,
it.
Steve, maybe you should have a vote on this one. Just
The
because
town
it's so
meeting is
close.
going to decide.
No,
what they want.
I think we ought to be sensitive to a conversation as it comes up when we deal with the public.
yeah.
Because sometimes, I know when we were dealing with one of the projects on 123, there was a lot of concern about having a lot of these apartment buildings being too high and coming in on you. And I think it's wider there, but where we were on 123, the concept of really lowering those buildings, and in fact, the selectmen pushed to get those floors lowered on the 40B project. And because the people were sensitive to it, just cutting out light and just being something not used to, what they're not used to. So I'm open to leaving at 60, but I'm certainly willing to let that conversation unfold at that meeting with the sensitivity. If it's sensitive, we can come back to that.
As much as I hate to say leave it open-ended for now, I mean, I think it's worth hearing from some other people too.
And I guess the point I'd make, that if we're trying to incentivize, for 300 years, developers have been able to put up 45-foot buildings. And how's that work for us in this particular area? I think if in fact we're trying to incentivize, first off, you're devoting the first floor to some type of commercial enterprise, and the upper 3 or 4 stories, 3 stories, has to be residential. You've got to give them some incentive in terms of height or density or whatever else.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we fall back to what we've had for 300 years, and we end up with what we've got.
Right.
And if that's what people want, terrific. I'm not looking to spoon feed or force feed
Right.
people. It's just,
Well, I don't want to de-incentivize anyone. I just want them to have to go through a special permit process.
but I think
And if they
Chris-
really want that 5th floor, they'll go through a couple of meetings and get it approved.
But
you know?
I think Chris raises a good point, and let me just pull out my longevity card here. I've seen this board go through stages where they're either more or less receptive to a proposal based on the philosophy of people who are on the board. And I think the last thing you want to have is a building that was built in 2025 that at one level, because the special permit granting authority was either more generous or less generous, and the building right next door to it is, 20 or 30 feet higher because we have now a different makeup and mentality on the board. I think developers want to know, what are the ground rules? And if I'm not comfortable with the ground rules, I'll try to push to get them changed, i.e. through some mechanism, but I want to have a starting point in knowing what I can do as a developer, and that's
Yeah, that makes sense.
just
Yeah.
my thought.
We could go all night, because I got so many thoughts in
I
my
know.
head right now, but I'm gonna end it. The town will make the decision.
Right, but, we need to, we will certainly keep our ears open for this, and I know, because I've dealt with this before. Height is a big issue. And, that's one of the reasons we'll meet with the property owners, and we'll meet with the abutters, or notify them anyway, and we'll report back if we're getting, my assumption is the property owners will love it. They'll probably even say, why not higher? But, no. Mansfield can go higher because they're trying to promote ridership at the train station. We're not that. We don't need to be as intense as they do, but it's something, right.
You keep saying that, if you want a gold mine, you don't get one by zoning for gold mines.
Right.
You're going to get what the market will bear. Norton doesn't have a T station.
Right.
Norton doesn't have certain amenities that draw people to fill up a 4-story building or a 5-story
Right.
building. So some of this may be moot, but since it's such a confined area, I think what we're trying to do is intensify the development in that small area.
Right. And part of the story we'll have to talk about is you can do a beautiful 2-story building. Again, they're all over Foxborough, Easton, Mansfield. I mean, it's possible we could see those, and that could be a great thing.
Wheaton Residence Hall.
The new one?
How tall?
Is that-
In the front, it's 3 stories, in the back, it's 4. Okay?
No, I just.
Yeah, no, so it's up there 60 feet in the back. Again, average above grade plan. So they factored, just so the back of the building was in and the front was, so they factored it and they went right to the limit of the code and they got it in. But yeah, 60 feet.
And they could build it right at the corner, like 0 feet from the sidewalk, right next to the light, at the 140, 123 intersection, right? Basically, it's in that zone. So we could see that same dormitory at the corner of the center of town.
If the
Yeah.
lot sizes were big enough, I mean, those are considerations,
I'd make that turnaround bigger. That little turnaround in front of that.
Don't get into that, that's a sad story.
I had to turn around and I think I was driving our minivan and it was like, yeah,
Not comfortable?
no.
I think you'll
Okay.
get feedback from other
Yeah,
groups too.
I would
Yeah,
expect
selectmen and
it.
such.
I would expect it, and we'll report back, and again, we'll invite members too to hear that.
All right, so we'll put a pin in that for now and revisit it.
Yep.
All right. We're on to page 10. Right?
Right, and these are the ones dealing with the role of the building commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are fine.
And it's just changing inspector to commissioner, right? A lot of that.
Until you get to page 11.
In compliance to occupancy. Any comments on page 11? All right, how about on page 12?
Yeah. I don't know, I just want to caution, 175-15.3 is site plan applicability. And right now, it goes from A to F. And some of the, hope we're not stopping at C, because currently C is drive-throughs, so we're not eliminating, in other words, what I'm saying is,
Right.
I hope we're not eliminating.
The rest of it.
No,
The rest-
this was
No,
just...
this is just the changes.
These are just the changes, so, I'm sorry, it's not the complete section.
Okay, so we'll have to renumber or put some indication that
Oh, that D,
current C,
yeah.
D,
Oh,
E, and
yeah.
F
Yep.
go down a number, or up a
Right.
number, rather.
big change was the 20 or more parking spaces.
Yeah, look at number C1. Did we just cross out multifamily residential use, or is it, so all the newly?
Oh, we did. So that should come out.
You just said no to multifamily, right? So that comes out?
Yeah.
Yep.
In C,
C1.
it said all, top of, and multifamily
Oh.
residence, so.
Catch all.
All right, page 13.
We added the vibrant and walkable destination, and you said as articulate, we're still leaving the reference to this center vision plan, or are we going to take that out?
It's just giving a reference to where, that there was this plan. It's not a make or break, just wanted to, but I understand what you're saying too, Orin, that it's a report, and it's more of a summary of,
And I don't want people picking up something that we're not adopting, or things that, it has a lot of things in it that could be confusing, because it talks about reconfiguring the center and
yeah.
a whole bunch of other things that, if I'm a developer, I'm saying, well, what is it in here you want me to deal with? I thought we were just going to say a vibrant, walkable destination.
And, yeah, and if I'm at town meeting, I'm going to read this and think, okay, well, where is that? Is that?
We could take that out. So we'll take that, we'll remove it.
So it'll read, become a vibrant and walkable destination, period.
Yeah, maybe if you
Yeah.
can post any of the language that makes sense out of that center plan, that's just more descriptive.
I think that's actually, the vibrant and walkable is something you'll see in other code language too.
Okay. Yeah, because we provide for quite a few standards in what you're talking about,
Yeah.
the rest of it, so.
I don't think it's a bad thing to mention the Norton Village Center Vision Plan in the presentation, though.
Yeah.
You don't want it as
Yeah.
part of the
Oh, yeah, I
the
agree with that,
bylaw.
Kevin,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. If we didn't pull it out of the vision plan and put it in here, right, Orin, then,
But,
if we didn't pull it out of the vision plan and put it in here, then shame on us, right? Like,
Right.
what's
Yeah.
in the
Right.
plan should be in the law.
right, we should.
Right,
we
like, so
should be
then-
adopting it,
Right.
not just relying on it, because it's all over the place.
Yeah. But to Kevin's point, we can say that that's kind of the origin, where we came from, that's part of our
Right.
backstory, but here we are now with what's part of the actual change.
Are we on 14, or are we on?
Yep, 14 now.
I'm looking at 5, and I know we want to have that flavor, outdoor seating, dining areas. I mean, if it's not a restaurant and it's just an office or something, or do we want seats that shall be required, benches? I mean, especially if we're asking for that, then the 10 feet becomes almost mandatory, because you can't put that in the right of way or in the sidewalk. So you almost need that if you're going to be insisting on requiring this.
Well,
Well, if you're requiring that, then there's no way that they can get right up to the sidewalk anyway.
but it doesn't require that it be in the front.
It
Right,
says visible from the primary frontage.
right.
So you could see it on the
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, you just don't,
But the question I had written down is how much? I mean, who's going to decide, do I have one seat, or do I have to have 20 seats?
And do we're requiring every single store owner to put it in benches in front of his store? Or?
well, development, not each
And
business.
this is under what?
Well, maybe the word encouraged rather than required might be better.
Yeah, because this is under site plan, so I like the word encouraged.
Or may be required.
Yeah, instead of shall may.
Yeah, instead of shall, say may be required. Because if it's a restaurant,
Yeah.
it's going to have to be a special permit, and we can say we're going to require outdoor seating and, X amount of seats, tables.
Yeah, I like may, that way.
This was there because it's so important in areas like this where you want gathering to have
Yeah.
seats. So that's why it was, we went, I remember as the subcommittee, we went back and forth on this one, but
Under same area, B3, bollards, short decorative walls, large stones. I mean, do we really want large stones dumped in front of a building? I mean,
They do it in a tasteful manner.
sorry?
Stone wall.
well, stone wall's different, short decorative walls, but I mean, large stones, do we want,
If it's landscaped, yeah, it would depend on the final product, right?
but here again, it
We're trying to
says,
encourage pedestrian safety in front of the eating areas, basically.
right, but I think there are more aesthetically pleasing ways of protecting dining areas
I don't
than.
agree with you. Yeah, disagree with you. Yeah, that's fine.
It's really
I-
or. It's or
Yeah.
these four items, not and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be candid, I can't think of any arrangement of, other than in landscaping, but that's not really what this is trying to do. I just wouldn't want to see, dump truck full of big rocks just dropped along the front of a building and.
Yes,
That's
we could
how
just
the-
pull that as an example, right? Is that what you're saying, Joe? Just say bollards, short decorative walls, or similar features.
I mean, I understand
Just
what we're
take
trying
out-
to do is
Yeah.
is separate
Okay.
that area, but.
Okay, just take
Okay.
that term out. It has a little bit more of a rustic tone to it.
Yeah, I've got no problem with large stones, but not in front of a downtown,
Yeah.
A large stone lobby is going to be knocking on your door.
Okay, then you've got 4, again, you had the same issue. Street trees shall be placed along the sidewalk, average frequency of 1 tree every 30 feet. Again, if you were going up to the lot line, to the right-of-way, using the state's, they're gonna plant trees in the state right-of-way? You can't do that.
It would be up until lot line.
Yeah, so I mean,
I mean, there are plenty of downtown areas that plant in the road layout. I don't know, because it's a state highway,
yeah, this
how
town,
easy.
if the town owns it.
Town owns it.
Yeah.
Usually they'll put it in
Right.
and they'll take care to maintain it, too.
Yeah.
There's-
well, we would require through the site plan or special permit that they maintain it. It would be on the owner to maintain the trees, just like they do now.
Attleboro, North Attleboro.
Do we want to say, do we want to be able to dictate the, you don't want somebody planting X trees and the guy planting Y trees, and do we want to have some control of what types of plantings are going to be?
But we do, in site plan you do, special permit you do. And this would be utility-friendly trees here too, so you wouldn't want pine trees right here, not on a sidewalk.
I'm just
and-
saying, somebody's trees, somebody's design of trees may be different than somebody else's.
Right.
Do we want to put, I'm a little worried about at an average frequency of 1 tree every 30 feet. Do we want to put at no less a frequency than 1 every 30 feet? Do we want to have them closer in certain cases?
This was taken right from, right,
So
our
they had
current
recommended-
standard's 30
They
feet, so
recommended-
it's no less than 30 feet.
They had recommended 40 feet, I think, in their.
They did, but that's actually greater than our current standard in site plan, in the site plan section, which was 30 feet, so,
Okay.
But saying an average, too, gives you a leeway if there's,
Yeah, no, I just,
Paul, under C lighting, where it says in addition to the requirements under section XX, should that be article XX?
yeah, I couldn't find, it's
Article.
not Article XX, I had that circled as well.
Oh, no, it's not?
No. I don't know what that's referring to.
should be the lighting ordinance article.
Is there a lighting art, do we have an Article 20?
Yeah, Article 20 is large, XX.
Okay.
That's article, not section?
that's article.
Yeah. Yeah, lighting,
I should leave now.
but it's
Okay.
article, so I'll change that.
Just call you mister.
No, it came up with
So I'll change that to article.
Okay.
Anything else on 14? All right, how about page 15?
Around in the middle, under building form, number 2, if in new non-residential or mixed-use construction, ground floors shall be a minimum of 11 feet. Why? Is
Well,
there-
if they're too low, sometimes it just creates a really odd-looking, like, there was a building we were looking at in Mansfield where it just looks like it's squat. It's a squat, it's short, the first floor is just a really short one, and it just creates an unappealing view, so typically 11 feet or higher creates more of an experience for people to look into the space versus something that's much smaller than that.
We've got a couple of buildings that have been built, I'm big on scale, and there are a couple of buildings, and the scale just doesn't look right. And in part because first floor, I'm not picking on them, and I wasn't on the board when the Dunkin' Donuts at the corner of Freeman Street. But the building scale on that just doesn't look right to me.
Yeah.
It's too close to the street, and the first floor is too tall. It just doesn't fit in my humble opinion.
Did I hear you say too close to the street, Joe?
In that,
Okay.
At that corner, Joe, right?
Spin
it
those
depends on the
bicycle wheels
application.
backwards.
Again, a first story, a one-story building up against the street, I don't see the benefit of. If you're gonna have a
I also want it to
down,
be a tower if you're gonna put it up against the street.
in certain respects, yes, if you're gonna create that type of a look in a downtown area, then I don't have a problem with height. It's when you force a building. In my humble opinion, that the Dunkin' Donuts building is too close to the street and the scale isn't right.
If only we could swap that Dunkin' Donuts in Honeydew.
So again, the 11 feet thing, in many cases, it'll work.
Yeah.
If you have a fairly, a 3 or 4 story building.
Right.
But a 2-story building with 11-foot first floor, I don't think it works.
Gonna keep everything uniform, though,
See,
or
I
at
don't-
least all the first floors.
see, I
But
don't,
the first floor should be, in a multi-story building, the first floor should be the highest of all the
Oh,
floors.
Sure.
And it's gonna be commercial. So the top floor will be residential, it'll look different.
yeah, again, I can see circumstances where 11 feet just aren't gonna look right.
Joe, we have the ability under 3, I think it says, with shall as a standard, they can either seek a variance or a waiver from the planning board. So we do have some flexibility under this if it's a shall. This is under, on page 13, number 3, the design.
And that's should be a minimum.
Well, no, this is under the shall. Under
Yeah,
the
but-
shall, yeah.
Under
This is a should.
D, on page 15, in new non-residential mixed-use construction ground
Should
floors,
be a minimum, okay.
should be a minimum of 11 feet.
And then it's discussion.
So I think you have flexibility, but, we don't want a 9-foot first floor.
Yeah, I wouldn't
So
wanna
just-
see, a 9-foot, 8-foot, 10-foot, 12-foot.
And I've seen the
It's just
opposite.
gonna look horrible.
And I've seen
I don't
the
think anybody would
opposite
do
in
that,
some
but-
places where downtown Houston has some first floors that
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
look, they're gigantic and intimidating, and they did it wrong, and they've suffered because of it. But 11 feet's a fairly standard, but I get what you're saying, it's not always going to work.
No.
Yeah,
Just-
Fair enough.
Again, that's just, we're arguing taste now. It's a long argument.
Signage section, Roman numeral 8, is that an article? I'm sorry. Is that
Six-
article reference? The article
16?
number eight?
Where are you?
Signage F.
15.
Oh, article,
It's under-
yeah,
Is it Article 8 or?
Is it Article 8? Signage?
it's article.
And then you go to period and a comma after the Roman numerals.
Oh,
I thought that was some mark from like,
No, I think it's really there.
okay.
Just slightly above that, building entrances, entranceways. You've got, buildings may have more than one principal facade or entry, primary entrances not facing the property frontage, should open onto sidewalks or other designated pedestrian areas that are at least 10 feet in width. Why that wide? In other words, you're creating a driveway.
Well, it's really about if you have a seating area.
Well, my concern is if you're requiring 10 feet, are people just going to, park there?
It's not about parking, that's,
I know that's not what but why would, if it's simply an entryway, why do you need 10 feet wide?
you have to have a minimum side yard of 10 feet. That's probably where that came from.
Well, you can still have,
No,
well, it's about, if you have, let's say you have a restaurant and there's some outdoor dining, this is saying that it would have to be at least 10 feet wide, and that you can have an entryway coming off to serve that area that could be from the side of the building.
This is a
Again,
primary entrance, so probably having 10 feet, and a primary entrance isn't asking too much. It's a primary, it's not facing the front.
Right.
okay.
All right. Anything else on 15? How about page 16?
Under G in parking report, I think that should read site plan review applications and applications for special permit or under 15.3C6.
I think it's supposed to be G.
Parking G. So we want to, so you're missing a gap, because one is a special permit. 15.3.6C6 is going before the Paul and Chris. So it's that plus a special, all those will require a parking report.
Yeah,
So you're missing, so it's an application is for special permit or under 175.15.3.
so just add special permits.
So, yeah, an application is for special permit or under. Should be both. And then the second sentence, which reads, not subject to off-street parking requirements, it should be ended, I'd say but is subject to approval of. And again, governing body makes me nervous. I'm not sure really what that means. Does that mean the select people, or who's the governing body? I mean,
Well,
the applicable approving body or something like that, or? Because in one case it's you guys, in some cases it should be us, or.
Should we do us and or designee, or didn't we use that
Yeah,
one other
but-
time?
but
Maybe
planning
similar.
board's designee, yeah.
Yeah, maybe similar language again?
Yeah, something like
Okay.
that. But the governing body, I don't know what that means.
So it'd be the planning board or its designee.
Yeah,
But I think it would read better after 175-7.4 and 7.6, and instead is subject
okay.
to approval
And instead,
by the planning board or its designee.
okay.
All right. Anything else on 16? How about 17?
17, the only thing I had was under 7D, where proposed parking, not off-site parking, where proposed parking is located off-site.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe, could you repeat that?
Right here.
D, just take off, it
says
says
offsite
proposed
twice.
off-site.
Oh,
parking.
okay.
First offsite, eliminate
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was easy.
You guys did a great job doing all
Yeah,
this
you
work.
really did.
Thank you. Must have been hours worth of work.
Yeah, a lot of good discussion, and this helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is exciting. I mean, this is-
We had the time and we were able to.
It's a lot easier to react, as a member that was involved in it, it's a lot easier to react to something than try to develop it.
It's a lot
Yeah,
easier to
yeah.
criticize than to create.
No, but some of the stuff, you know,
Absolutely.
you know is subject to that. You know, in many cases, you expect it. So you make some judgments, but it's more calling out the stuff that everybody
Yep.
thinks is going to be a question. And, you know, you can make some suggestions, but I think what we did now is really helpful to overlap what was going on.
Oh, absolutely.
These things have to get scrubbed and re-scrubbed.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get it just right. I mean, that's why you have to have a group of people to look at it. And
Is there a date plugged in there, like for final edits, so we can go there and take out?
May
comments and
7th, May 6th, May 6th.
Script it for edit.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
So-
All
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris.
right, we have one more. item here,
Before
right?
we do, can we just get, we had that one parcel that we added, but it was only a portion of it.
Yeah, I mean, we can take that out, Paul, if that's troublesome.
Yeah, I would just say it's probably better, because it's just,
Well, what was the issue with leaving the whole parcel in? That was a concern?
Because what Amy said, we had to put either the whole thing in, or, no, it's the other one, Paul.
So,
I'm getting myself, oh, here we go.
Yeah, right there, where the
So-
fields are.
so 25, I'm not sure what the parcel line is.
That's
There
the
it is.
parcel
Lauren, it's right
line.
here.
So there's a line coming in the middle that says 25.
It's up on the screen.
It's up here, Lauren.
That's the whole parcel, Orin.
That's the whole
We had
parcel.
just taken a
We just
corner.
don't have the resources to do the meets and bounds.
Yeah.
Well,
That
the
quickly.
question I raised is, would Wheaton be willing to do that? I mean.
Yeah, but by the time we have to get this all noticed,
Yeah.
that's
The only
the,
problem is if you try to do it later, you're gonna get into spot zoning issues, is the problem.
well, it depends where it gets approved. If not, I don't think spot zoning would be,
No, if we approve what we have now, then we wanna rezone that one lot and make it a village core, then you're gonna get into spot zoning.
well, it would be contiguous to other.
Doesn't matter.
So it's lot 25, like you mentioned. that-
Yeah,
So
and-
originally, we had
right
just
here.
bounded it by the streets,
Yeah.
thinking, oh, that would be great if we could just have that frontage along Liberty Square.
Yes, yeah.
But then I think when Amy reviewed it, she said, you can't cut the parcel like that. You either are all in or not in.
Yeah.
Got it.
Unless you did the legal description
Right.
for it, and that's just,
Time consuming at
you
this
gotta get a
point.
surveyor to do it, and,
I don't think any of those homes are going anywhere anyway.
No.
No,
well, this is all,
Wheaton
Probably not.
property.
this is Wheaton property, so these are the ball fields and childcare and,
Mhm.
I don't know, yeah.
You've got Clark Recreational Drive, why couldn't we go to that?
That's what originally we had thought, Joe.
We did.
Right, although
We
it-
just bound it by the street.
Right, but
streets.
24 wasn't part of it, right,
No.
originally? So. if we-
True.
You included by the, is that Irish Street, is it a subdivision, is it?
Sure, it's private.
Well, 23 and 24 are notched out of that bigger lot, 25.
Right, those two little,
That's all lot 25 is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
That whole thing that's shaded up there? Yeah.
You know, another option down the road could be an A&R. We could talk to them about that if that were their desire to do so. I mean, because you see here, right behind, no, let me remove this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that if they were, how they were thinking of ultimately developing that, if they think they wanted to be into this, it may be worthwhile for them to do an A&R for that, for parcel.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, if Amy's recommending leave it
We're
out.
doing this, if we want to be in it, but we need you to cut it after this. It
Yeah.
can't be, you know, they have the ability and the finances to be able to do that, and it
Yeah.
may make sense for them to.
and, right, and with those homes right up on Mansfield, I'd be really leery about rezoning that. to this with that there, because thinking about where that would go at town meeting would be,
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of properties we're rezoning at this point, and we can revisit down the road, but. So just then remove it,
Yep.
Yeah.
okay.
We're really not even certain how much teeth this new bylaw will have on Wheaton property anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got one more discussion item here.
Yeah, this was one we had on our to-do, but then when I was working with the town manager, I just thought, well, why not see if you all would be agreeable to this, but this is regarding the requirement that any zoning map amendments, that we must put signs on the perimeter of the area to be rezoned. So this is Article 175-12.4, and this creates a few challenges. And obviously, we're going to put the signs out for the village center core and the marijuana overlay districts. But a couple of things to keep in mind is the signs are not required by Mass General Law. Now, for example, it is required to post in a newspaper and to abutters, send a notice to abutters within 14 days and 7 days of a public hearing, but it does not require signs to be put out. So we would still be doing all the other noticing, including, we do social media, we post it up on our pages, and, we're going to do what we can to get public outreach through informational sessions.
That doesn't include mailing, though.
Yes, it does. Mass General Law requires mail-outs to abutters.
Only for changes in the streets and for parks.
No, any rezoning requires
Our
that.
bylaw requires it. It requires the bylaw requires any amendments have to be mailed to property owners
Right,
that are within, so unless this is part of an amendment, then what happens?
right. And the state law requires that we notice abutters as well on any
You
rezoning.
notice them not by mail.
We do notice them by mail.
You're not required
No.
to notify people by mail for zoning changes.
For zoning map amendments, I believe you are.
No, you ran into this in Plainville. You can request, as a property owner anywhere in town, you can request by,
I think if you're an absentee owner,
well, anyone
But-
can require that they be notified of any zoning change by a notice to the planning board.
But we're not proposing to remove that.
Well, you can, it's
you can't,
Mass
that's
General law.
that's
Right.
statute.
But I don't believe you are required, although I can see the benefit of notifying affected property owners and abutters of a zoning change.
Yeah.
But I don't believe you're required to do that. And our zoning bylaw doesn't require it.
Well,
It just talks about the signs.
for the zoning map, it talks about a sign.
But in other sections, it talks about any amendment, we would have to notice abutters for it,
Yeah, proposed amendment to the bylaws.
rezonings.
That's our bylaw.
Right.
That's not state.
I would,
So
I'd-
then there's no reason for 175-12-4.
right,
I'd
Yeah, that's
say
the
just
proposal.
eliminate it.
just eliminate it.
Well, no, you gotta make sure this is not, you wanna say
Or
zoning.
who are you
amendment,
reading?
Well, that's what he's proposing.
Or change the zoning map. Because they're two different things. You can do a zoning amendment, it's not necessarily a map change.
Right.
The zoning
Right, but
map
this is specific to zoning map amendments, and that's all we're specifically doing is, requesting to eliminate the requirement to put signs on the properties.
But we can add, we can eliminate that, but require that item B will apply or something like that. That requirement will stay. I mean, I'm concerned with,
I'm
But I don't
sorry,
think-
Orin, I'm not sure where you're,
12.22B is what says,
Yeah.
planning board shall hold a public meeting.
Yeah.
Any proposed amendments refer to it by the selectmen.
Yeah, but this proposal, this isn't to change the entire law. This is just to eliminate this one particular section.
Two different sections.
Right.
One sentence.
Yeah, but that's not what we're, that's not what we're discussing right
Changing the
now.
upper part.
I know, but I want the upper part to apply to the map. We're taking out the posting of signs. I want to include, because if you're changing the map, and you should be, if you're not posting, the relevance of signs is ridiculous, I agree.
Yeah.
But I do think we should be sending out notices if you're changing the zone.
We are, we do.
So I think there's nothing in here that says that.
Well, it's, any amendment to the zoning,
This is
Bylaw.
technically not, this is an amendment to the zoning map, which is, I
Well-
don't know whether, I would just make it clear if you're taking that out, either if you're taking it out or you're modifying it, we reference that we will do that kind of notice.
So okay, so on B, it says notices of such hearing, which would be here, the planning board, shall be mailed to all property owners according to the latest tax records, including within or abutting land adjacent to the amendment, abutting communities, and the regional planning agency. So that's already there. We're not changing that.
No, but that's an amendment as opposed to a map.
but the zoning
Yeah,
map
this
is
is-
an amendment.
But the zone,
This is just taking out the zoning map amendment requirement of the,
you couldn't have an
Putting the signs
abutter
out.
to a text change. Right, so,
It says, no, actually, you do.
Well, if you change the sideline from 30 feet to 20 feet, we wouldn't notify every property owner in town, even though it's a zoning amendment.
No, but that's a different issue. That's the one we were faced with. It says if it's a town-wide amendment, you don't have to notify them. And that's under, where was it?
No, I mean, let's say everyone in a village, in a R60, I don't know, I don't have it in front of me. If, let's say in a R60, the sideline requirement is 50 feet, and we're gonna change it to 40, you wouldn't notify everyone in town in an R60 district.
Right. Because it's a general district. It's not a specific road. That's the issue we ran into with Bay Road. Because
So-
they were claiming it was a town-wide amendment, but they said they were basically, it only affected them.
but we're not, he's not asking to eliminate any
right.
any
and-
notices. This is just to eliminate posting signs on the,
Right, and
The
or
line.
under 12.1, it says this bylaw and the zoning map may be amended by two-thirds majority vote. I think that's just implying that zoning map amendments are also covered under Article 7. Wait, I'm sorry, 12, Article 12. And as a practice, we do, on any rezoning, we notice abutters. So this isn't changing that, and it won't, that will still always, that will continue to be the practice, that we will notify them.
So Paul, the reason for this is you just want to remove the language that talks about posting signs, 2-foot square signs, right?
Right.
So why wouldn't you just take the existing 12.4 and just like eliminate everything after the word change on the third line? And shall post the boundaries, just eliminate that last partial sentence, right? And then also, looks like you want to eliminate the drawn by a registered land surveyor, maybe just end it at submit an accurate map, period.
Well, my preference is delete the whole thing, but
Okay.
I put in that option just in case you didn't want to go that way,
You
but
have
I
to
think
flip it over.
we're
Yeah, I
fine,
saw that.
Yeah.
yeah.
But this second option leaves in the 2-foot square signs around the boundary. I thought that's your main issue with this.
No, it's not the main one. It's not the main one, but
And you
it's
leave
still
the
left
background.
if you were to go that route, we'd still want to have some provision on how big the sign should be. But
People are getting a mailed notice,
yeah,
and
yeah.
even though there's a public hearing and a public notice in the newspaper, I know most people don't see that, but if they're getting mailing, I mean, that's as informative as
Yeah.
I think you need to be. I think 12.4 can just go away.
I agree with that.
I mean, there are still, from whatever it was, 3 years ago, signs up on Mansfield Ave.
They're still up there from this fall town meeting.
I'm talking about
This
3 years ago.
Yeah, a
3
while
years
ago.
ago. And-
Don't we still need to, do we have language in the balance of the, to require a map? We still need a map, a digital
Yeah.
map. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still covered outside of 12.4?
Yeah, you would still
Yeah,
have to provide the
12.4 is
map, the
specific for
area
the-
that's, because it still has to be identified in the notice. And certainly, you all need to know what you're voting on in town meeting they do, so that doesn't go away. The only thing this does is delete the requirement to put signs in the ground.
So the first half of 12.4, where it talks about everything but the signage, where it says, have at least 3 weeks prior to public hearing should submit an accurate map, that's already covered in a different section of the article?
12.2. It
Okay.
says,
So that's redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree, just remove the whole thing.
yeah, notices of such hearing shall be mailed to all property owners according to the latest tax record included within or abutting land subject to the amendment.
Hold a second.
So, you know,
12.4.5, one second. Thanks.
I didn't hear the beginning of that, Joe. It says map, actually has the word map in it.
no, it doesn't. It simply says, it talks about a hearing that needs to take place. Notices of such hearing shall be mailed to all property.
That's what I'm saying. I think a map should be, it's only reasonable that a map should be developed if we're asking to have something rezoned. It
Right.
doesn't say anything about a map anywhere else in the bylaw.
So then could you just edit B where it says, of any proposed amendment or zoning map modification referred to it by the Board of Selectmen within, like, could you just change that
Yeah.
one area from a proposed amendment and then reference a map somehow?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not clear
Would that
from this
hit it?
reading that this doesn't affect just the amendments. It should, there's another section, I don't have it, I mean, there was another section that, was it for special permits or for site plan review, that says if it affects the general population, you don't have to give notice. Where was that? That was on the,
I think we're getting a little beyond the scope of what Paul's trying to do here.
Not really.
I believe we are. I think that the question is, are we going to require to have these signs, or are we okay?
We're okay with not having signs.
Okay.
But we want to be clear that we're still giving notice, and by taking this out, I'm not clear that you're doing that.
Well, I mean, again, the title,
It's
the
in
title
12.2.
of the article is zoning amendments. And it says, the first one is amendment by town meeting. This bylaw and zoning map may be amended by 2/3 majority vote of the town meeting on a warrant article for such amendment. And then it just talks about initiation of amendments, that registered voters can initiate it, members of the planning board, board of selectmen can initiate it. But any change to the zoning map or any change in the text of the zoning bylaw, both are equally considered amendments.
Right, and both have to be provided in the, the petition that gets submitted.
Right, but the bylaw, the upper bylaw, is only referring to, there has to be a public hearing, and notice of that public hearing. And I don't know, I think we've all gotten legal notices from either Conservation Commission or whatever, and it doesn't tell you a darn thing about what's being, there will be a hearing on either special permit or whatever, and you have no idea what's in that. And I think what Kevin's referring, or concerned about, if I could
Thank you,
presume
Joe.
to speak for
My
you,
buddy over here.
is that we want to ensure that there's some type of contextual,
A map, a visual
In
of some
case of a
sort,
map.
in the language. Yeah, not assumed or insinuated, but actually in the language. If you strike 12.4, you're going to eliminate all reference to a map being required to be provided prior to the public hearing.
so we'd have to, personally, I agree with eliminating 175-12-4. But then I think we also need to amend 175-12-2B that says the planning board should hold a public hearing, blah, 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 on any proposed amendment, notices of such hearing, which shall include the assumed, or the proposed text or map changes.
Okay, yeah, the statute requires the showing of the map in a manner sufficient for identification. District shall be shown on zoning map in a manner sufficient for identification.
We're referring to statute, but that doesn't require
No.
notice.
No, that doesn't
Okay,
require.
yeah. But
Okay.
this bylaw does, so if we put notices of such hearing, comma, which shall include the proposed textual changes and/or zoning map changes.
Shall be mailed to all property owners.
Yeah, the next sentence, general notice will serve where the proposed amendment is of a universal or wide application to the town. That's where you can opt out, that's where you opt out of it. So that was your question, you're not gonna give the town a change of something that doesn't affect everybody.
So it looks like we have to, if we want to eliminate one, we have to beef up another.
It's fine. So we can just add notices of such hearing, which shall include proposed text or map changes shall be made.
Or,
Mail
like
to all
my
property
recommendation before, if you don't want to remunerate everything, just stay with 12.4 and just strike like the second half of that paragraph. But I don't want to complicate things.
Well, we want to make it easier.
I mean, if you just strike everything from change on the fourth line down, after that comma, eliminate that whole section.
Well, first of all, you got that 3-week thing, which is a problem. It should be 2
You
weeks.
change that to 2, that's easy.
Okay.
And if you want to remove the drawn by a registered land surveyor, then you don't have to remunerate and have an empty,
Wait, I'm getting confused now on
Yeah,
this
so
change.
instead of all the changes to 12.2,
Yeah.
we would change this to 2 weeks.
What
Instead of
would,
3.
what would we be doing in 2 weeks? Would this be the posting of
Well, we'd keep the
notices
first-
to the abutters and to?
whatever the beginning of that
The
paragraph.
first paragraph here, whenever an amendment to the zoning map proposes the zoning classification of a parcel of land be changed, the initiators of such amendment, at least 2 weeks prior to the public hearing, shall submit an accurate map. And are we going to eliminate drawn by?
Well, I don't,
No, you don't want that.
we don't want
No,
that.
not
Then
in-
you want to
no.
eliminate it.
So an accurate, no, we want to eliminate it, you said?
What are you saying? We don't want what?
We don't want the registered land surveyor to
Yeah,
draw
so eliminate
this.
that.
You don't need that.
No.
At some point, you have to file that with the registry of deeds, and at some point, you're gonna need some good description of the
Have to file a zoning change with the
No,
registry.
not a zoning change.
change of deeds.
Yeah,
So
but
can we
the-
just continue this thought? So an accurate map, comma,
A lot.
identifying the extent of the proposed change, period. And that's,
Yeah, and then
that's the whole paragraph.
So, and then eliminate the last.
I think it's a map change.
So funny.
The problem with that is,
Yeah.
whenever amendment to the zoning map proposes that the zoning classification of parcel land be changed, the initiator of such amendment, at least 2 weeks to the public hearing, shall submit an accurate map. First of all, who do they submit it to? And are we gonna see this for the first time, 2 weeks before the public hearing? The whole reason for calling the public hearing is that we assume we have the map change. So that, to me,
So
doesn't
A
work.
has to be, A is one, the individual.
Yeah, this is where I'm getting confused. I think I would suggest the route you were going initially,
Yes.
do it there, because
Yeah.
we need that map when the application comes in.
Right.
Okay.
This is saying they can get the map to us 2 weeks before your public hearing. No, that's not.
So back
You don't
to
want
what Joe
that.
proposed with the change to 12.2 and just eliminate.
Yeah, just delete this.
Should have stayed with Joe all along.
Yep, that's always a
I
good
tell my
thing.
wife, just listen to me.
That's why,
Or she doesn't either.
That's
so.
why you're here.
that's why he's got the corner office over here.
Okay, so I'll
So
amend
it's more than
this.
just the signs that you have issue with. It's more than just a 2 by,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, I mean,
yeah. Your leading paragraph made it sound like it was just the signs that you had an issue with, but there
Oh,
are
but the reasons.
more corrections here that we need.
Well, but if you take that out, you're still gonna be dealing with, you've got it here, about we've gotta send it out, if we initiate it, or notices the public, unless it's a separate. A is by property owners, a petition by property owners or registered voters. Can they propose a zoning map change?
absolutely, yep.
10 registered voters with
Any
Can do
amendment?
anything.
any town meeting article can be initiated by 10 registered voters.
Yeah.
So do we have to put some onus on them to provide a plan, a registered plan? I don't want something on a chicken scratch saying, here's what I want to carve out.
Yeah, in my experience, what they've done is they've pulled the assessor's map, and with that, we can get the parcel data from that. But at this point, for rezoning, registered surveyor, no, that's a very detailed. Now, I would love to go back into our digital map and, when we do a real big cleanup of it, that might become helpful, but I would not do that at this point, and this is just notification of it, so I would just think we should accept the parcel map as the base map for them.
So Joe, do you want to repeat what you're asking as a
I would suggest.
a motion?
I will move that, I'll make two motions. The first one would be that section 175-12-2B read, "Planning board should hold a public hearing duly advertised as required by MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5 on any proposed amendments referred to it by the Board of Selectmen within 65 days of such."
You know what,
As I read it,
Yeah.
it shouldn't just be those referred by the Board of Selectmen.
do you have to make the notice another section, say notices of such hearing?
What if we amended A? A is when you actually submit it.
Okay, they have to submit it to the, okay, they submit it to the selectmen submit it to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They refer it to us, so when they refer it to us,
Right.
is
So that
when
still
that
works.
triggers it. So
All
I
right.
think you're okay.
Period. So I move to amend the second sentence. Notice of such hearing, which shall include proposed textural and/or map amendments, shall be mailed to all property owners.
All property owners?
Included within the abutting.
Yeah, just, I just
Yeah.
stopped reading.
Is it-
I second.
The motion is second. Further discussion?
Hold on a second, I just want to check on something, please. The assessed plans. This was something that said you wanted to- okay.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
did we have a second? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Kevin.
Kevin did, okay.
Okay. And so we need a second motion to eliminate 12.4.
I move that we eliminate existing section 175-12.4 in its entirety.
I second.
Motion is second. Further discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I think we have,
Did we approve the bill?
yes.
We did, okay.
Oh, wait, did we? Yeah, we did.
Yes. He did,
We're going to have, the next meeting, we're going to have an executive session, right?
yes,
Okay.
to discuss Fairland Farms.
Yeah. So just make sure that's on your radar. Anything else, Paul?
Nope, that is it.
All
And
right.
again, I want to thank you all for the work you're doing on these, particularly the Village Center
Yeah.
for,
FYI, we're meeting, been invited to meet with the IDC tomorrow. Is that the meeting
their meeting tomorrow, yes.
tomorrow? They did meet with us, and they gave us some outlines of what their projected areas are going to be for allowing the marijuana uses. We walked through it with them and had some discussion. And tomorrow, they're going to be going through some modifications, the bylaw that was submitted, and we're going to walk through that. And once we're done with that, we'll bring it back to you guys.
Excellent.
And along those lines, I would, they have asked that if it's between now and the April meetings, they'd like to come back and present those, so we're going to have a lot going on.
Yeah.
But I think
Have
it would
we,
make sense.
have you guys talked about who's best to sponsor that article? Is it them?
It's
or
them.
It is them, that's
It's
good.
them.
So they'll be required to present it to the FinCom and Selectmen.
But we'll help them. You know,
We'll help
I'll
'em,
be
yeah.
there to help them out with it. I mean, they know what
I
they're
shouldn't say
doing.
required. I mean, I just want to make sure somebody
Yeah.
is the owner
Right.
of that, yeah.
We still have to generate a report.
Yes. You'll still be making a recommendation on it, on both the text changes and where they're proposing the overlay districts.
Just going back to the core, there are a lot of sections that we've adopted that were in the recommendations. Would it be helpful for us to maybe in some way note what we've adopted from what was already recommended by that group? So we're not making up stuff? You know, I don't know, in going through it, if there's an easy way of doing it, rather than us thinking, well, where'd this stuff come from? We can just say, this group that we paid to help us do this, that gave us recommended bylaw changes, and, you know, some of these, or especially the standards, you know, I think the bulk of which just came right out of their bylaw.
Yeah.
And we could just use that as a reference in saying, just so you know, we've adopted the form, the draft bylaw that they had suggested
Right.
in these areas.
Yep.
Just so it's not like we've made it up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right, no, I agree with that, Orin, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep,
good
it tells a
idea.
good story.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we're staying with the story.
Yep.
And everybody's seen it, and everybody had a chance to
Yeah,
touch it.
yep, absolutely agree.
Any last-minute motions here?
Last minute? I think the last minute was like, move to adjourn.
That's about as last as you get it.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.